Greetings, everyone. We are back. It is GameFace, episode 385 on Sifted Games at SIFTD.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, your humble host, and alongside me, somebody who is finally feeling a good bit better. It's Matt Keil. What's up, Matt?
Hey.
You back on the mend?
Somewhat.
Yeah? Still not 100?
No, I'm still tired, although I think that's the antibiotics.
Yeah. So, you guys probably know already, Matt's been under the weather. What a run it's been. I had COVID, and then we did, I think, 3 episodes, and then you got sick. Hopefully this is just a spring fling, and we're kind of getting over the hump here. We'll be good for the summertime.
I think I picked up something at Disneyland.
Oh, really? Is that what happened?
Probably. The timing works out. Because it wasn't COVID. There were negative tests on that. But it was just some kind of bleh, and then it turned into bronchitis, and I had to get pills for that. And it's, yeah, you can still hear it a little bit in the voice. But,
you sound pretty good.
It's, yeah.
We'll see how you are at the 2 hour and 45-minute mark today.
It should be fine. But like I haven't had an actual disease in forever, and that's other than COVID.
Yeah.
Like normally it's just allergy stuff. Mm-hmm. Nope. This one hit pretty hard.
Yep. Well, here we are.
There are weird, like flus and just like respiratory things going around this year.
I thought you may have RSV. That's one of the things that kind of going around now that used to never go around.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird.
I didn't think so because there's no fever. So
that's usually because it's very similar to COVID actually. RSV.
Yeah.
A lot of people are fooled into thinking they have COVID when in fact they have RSV.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it could have been allergies, except the color of the mucus gives it away when you're fighting something.
That's true.
It was not pleasant, but that was enough for that. When I first got it, it was like Saturday before last week, and I was like, I figured I'd be fine in time for the show, and nope, like that was just hung on for a week.
Yep. Well, I ended up doing an episode of a little show we have called The Grind, which I had not done in like 2 years. We've been calling quite a run here on GameFace.
We have a dance show?
Yeah. That's a good point, though. No, it's like a little mini GameFace that I do by myself. Do you remember it? Because it's been so damn long. No. It's a little mini GameFace that I do by myself when Matt can't do the show. And I actually there was like 2 reviews. I reviewed Harold Halibut in there and Turbo Golf Racing in there, which were things that I had played for GameFace, but then GameFace didn't happen. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, we have awesome games now. For this episode, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to fit those 2 smaller things in there, so I just reviewed them in The Grind. So if you're a patron, you haven't checked out The Grind, that's what The Grind is. That episode went up on Friday. You guys can check it out. Maybe you want to do that while you're waiting for the archive of this to show up tomorrow morning. This is GameFace. This is the flagship show of Sifted at SIFTD.net. We are supported pretty much 100% at Patreon at patreon.com/sifted. If you like the show and you're watching it or you're listening to it out on the wilds of the internet, again, go to patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD. And you can pledge whatever you want there. Excuse me. But for $4 a month, you get all our content at least 3 days early. GameFace 3 days early. Pactor Factor a week early. So if you can help us, we'd really appreciate it. That'd be great. And that's what keeps the show going. Let's check in with you guys and see what you guys have been up to. We've missed you guys. It's been 2 weeks since we've hung out. Let's see what's going on in our chat here. Lesteved gifting the tier 1 subs. Thank you. For those of you who don't know, Lesteved is the owner of LS Cream, one of our awesome sponsors. David says, I really liked The Grind. One thing to keep in mind with The Grind is it's always way shorter. I think that episode was like 35 minutes or something like that. So I keep it brief if I can. David5807, thank you for Twitch Prime as well. That's awesome. What else we got in here? Sleepy Turtle 3, thank you for Twitch Prime. AJ the Legend Watson, thank you. Immortan Joe says he's finally making a live stream. Welcome. Hope you're doing good. Hope you all are doing good. Hope you guys missed us. Everyone's saying happy that you're feeling better. Matter of fact, I missed my GameFace fix last week. Well, we are back, and we should be back for quite a while. It looks like that's all that's going on in our chat so far. Thanks as always to Listeved. You're an awesome dude. Thanks for supporting our crew.
I also, when I was at Disneyland, I ran into Veritas.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. He came up to me at the tropical hideaway, confused the hell out of my friends. I don't get recognized in public very often.
Is that the first time it's happened?
For Sifted, yeah.
Yeah?
Actually, I think a couple of people knew me from the show the last time I went to the Game Awards.
Oh, okay.
But that's very much the core audience, the demographic at that. It doesn't happen in public too often.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah. If you guys ever see us out in public, don't be shy. Come up to us and say hello. We are 1,000% about meeting our fans and talking to you guys. And did you talk about games with Veritas at all?
No, it was real quick.
Yeah.
Just like you said hello, and you've been following my career for decades. I guess that has
it has been,
yeah. And that was it.
Yeah.
Originally, when he came up, I thought he just wanted our table because we were leaving.
That's hilarious.
That's usually the most interaction you get with strangers at Disneyland is, are you leaving?
Yeah. Because people know better usually. But again, if you guys ever see us out in the wild, man, come up to us, say hello. We're totally cool with meeting you guys and saying what's up and getting a beer with you if we have time. All that stuff is cool. So glad that you met him. I wonder if Veritas is in our chat today, if he made it onto the show. AJ the Legend asks if I'm happy with the Steelers draft. I'm very happy with the Rams did. I am very happy with the Steelers draft. I'm very happy with the last 2 Steelers drafts. They have been rated an A+ by Pro Football Focus, and I'll admit, I'm not a huge fan of Pro Football Focus, but when they rate the Steelers draft an A+, I am. They've done that. They've done that the last 2 years. So yeah, I'm very happy with the Steelers draft, and congrats to you on a good draft for the Rams as well. I actually did notice a couple players the Rams got that were good value picks, players that probably should have went earlier that the Rams got. So congratulations. Toon Medic says you guys should come check out Play New York City, an indie event. I work it and would love to meet you guys. Trip out to New York City seems maybe like a stretch. I love New York City. I'm an East Coaster. I've been there so many times. But getting out there, both Matt and I out there, might be a little bit tough. God of Gamblers 33, thank you for Twitch Prime, man. That's awesome. Let's see, what else? Do we have any other housekeeping? I don't think so. I think the good news, Matt, is that while we were gone for a week, it was kind of a slower week. And now we're like overloaded. Well, there was one game that we're not going to cover today called No Rest for the Wicked. And I tried to play it, and I finally got to the point, Matt, where my PC is too weak and it won't run it. The specs for it, I contacted Private Division's customer service, and they wrote back, they're like, oh, dude, your CPU isn't powerful enough. And I was like, well, I just want to let you know, this is the first game that my CPU wasn't powerful enough for. And they're like, well, sorry, yeah, we realize that the specs are a little demanding, because it's just like a little indie isometric, like...
Yeah, well, no, there's a lot going. I played it for like 15 minutes.
Oh, really?
It's there's a lot happening visually. There's lighting on everything. There's particles everywhere. There's stuff. There's like tons of characters on screen. I mean, because I was the same. I was like, what is happening in this? It's gonna. But like after having played it, I'm like, oh yeah, they're doing a lot of high end technical tricks that I could understand why you need higher end hardware for this. However, it was right when I was starting to get sick, and it didn't really grab me because I am so over the Dark Souls thing.
It's an isometric Souls-like.
Yeah,
right?
It's an isometric. It's all kind of weird. Everyone's all weirdly proportioned and weirdly. It's like okay, like, and also it's early access. Like probably I think, and I feel like, and I went through the Hades thing enough that I'm like, maybe I'll just wait until this thing's done.
Most reviews for it say, one, that it is a resource hog. So I'm not...
Oh, for sure.
I'm not an outlier there.
I mean, I can hear that thing working the fans on my PC harder than Cyberpunk does.
Whoa.
So it's clearly not and it chugs in places. Like on my PC, it chugs. And so it's clearly not optimized. Like,
well, then the other...
That's the last thing you do, usually.
Yeah.
So it's understandable, but...
The other criticism was that it's not done, it's not optimized, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not going to cover that on today's show, but believe me, we have plenty of games to discuss on GameFace 385. So I think maybe our biggest problem is trying to get all this show into our typical allotted time, because there's a bigger housekeeping section today, because there's some big news that happened last week that we still want to discuss at least briefly before we kind of move on. So anyway, with that, maybe it's time to get into our housekeeping, just as our Patreon Give Me Credit roll finishes. Bring up our lower third for housekeeping again. We got a big edition of housekeeping this week. Mike's Q, thank you for Twitch Prime. See you getting in there before we get into our housekeeping. Vincent says eventually it'll have to run on consoles. That's true. Yeah. And Toon Medic says Matt will be happy to hear that Balatro has its hooks in me. I think a lot of people are feeling that right now about Balatro.
Yeah.
But anyway, our first topic for housekeeping in episode 385 is some more information that we got on the Switch 2. It does feel like it's all just very slowly leaking out. And usually how this happens, Matt, and this was kind of the case with this one, is like hardware manufacturers end up leaking stuff out. Because Nintendo, let's be honest, Matt, here in the next couple months, Switch 2 probably is going to go into production to get units ready to go for the launch next year, presumably early next year. We'll see. But it won't be too long.
You want to get ahead of that so you can maybe get the second run more or less done before New Year hits.
Yeah.
And shuts everything down for a couple weeks.
Yep. So it won't be long until they start manufacturing, and that tends to be when the big stuff starts leaking out. But we're still getting little stuff right now. And one of the smaller things that we got this week was some information on how the Joy-Con are going to work on the Switch 2. Matt, now that we're kind of post-Switch, what are your final kind of impressions of the Joy-Con? Keeping in mind, Matt, that the plural of Joy-Con is Joy-Con.
I have touched them maybe twice.
Is that true?
So, I've used the Pro Controller for everything.
Yeah. I think most people are that way.
I have barely used them.
Yeah.
They're too small. They're too weird. I don't care to use them. They're for hands smaller than mine, clearly.
I agree with everything you just said. They are too small. And they're also very awkward in your hand. Like, they show...
And I should say I'm fine with that because I have the Pro Controller.
Right.
Like, if you make them smaller for kids or what, like, that's fine. Like, it has not affected my enjoyment of the system at all. But they're not for me. I mean, look how small that thing is next to a fucking amiibo.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, I do think they're too small because I do enjoy using them. I typically do play, I wouldn't say all, but I play a lot of my Switch games with the Joy-Con and usually split apart, like as two separate things instead of one thing, so I can really lounge while I play. But I do have some complaints with them. Obviously, I think the first one everyone's going to point to is the analog stick drift. Probably a bigger problem in Joy-Con than other controllers, although it is apparent or prevalent in other controllers as well. It seems to be a worse problem with the Switch. Also, too small. This right here, the playing with this, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Like, I don't think I could do that for more than 10 minutes or so.
Yeah. And then my other issue with it is that it's just loaded with crap that, and you're going to start seeing in this B-roll, you may have even forgotten.
Yeah, you forget that all
the
this
stuff that
the
Joy-Con can or was supposed to do, because hardly any games ever made use of it. And the problem, Matt, is that...
And these stupid things, which always just get stuck on them.
Right. And then the thing, Matt, is that all this functionality that was jammed into these little things, that one, they don't use them, and two, it drives up the cost of the Joy-Con.
And probably contributes to the failure rate.
Yeah, there's an IR camera inside that thing. Why? Why is there an IR camera inside the controller?
The Joy-Cons, to me, always felt like Nintendo just wasn't sure what was going to be the big hit, the big hook, and they wanted these things to be ready to be able to do anything.
Yeah.
Like, they needed it to be a Wii controller, like a Wiimote, in case that became the thing again. They needed it to be a normal controller in case that became the direction things went, which is pretty much the direction things went. They needed it to do weird other things in case they wanted, they were... There's the Joy-Cons, to me, are the only element of the Switch that betray an indecisiveness or an insecurity on Nintendo's part for this system. They just weren't quite sure what this thing was going to end up being.
What would be popular about it?
Yeah. And in the end, I think...
Like this stuff.
Yeah. Like, who fucking cares? Like, why?
It just drives... The NFC reader in Joy-Con. Do we need that? Is that going to be in Joy-Con, too?
I mean, with the Amiibos kind of vanishing...
It feels like maybe not.
Although, again, the problem with that is that then you have a bunch of stuff from the previous generations that won't carry forward. You like... The Zelda games, you can't do the Amiibo functionality anymore in future. I think they're kind of locked into including those things.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what are you going to do? Like, okay, well, you just can't play the WarioWare game on the next system for reasons.
Yeah. Because another thing that's kind of leaked out this week also, is something that we assumed and I think we kind of knew, is that it would be backwards compatible with the original Switch.
Because what I would do, if I would basically include bare bones Joy-Cons in the system.
That shot right there is awesome.
And if you want to get the like the full functionality ones, you pay extra to get separate sets.
That could be.
Because that feels more fair and more economic, especially if you're going to end up having to charge more because the system's stronger.
Yeah.
Like, skimp out on the Joy-Cons because most people don't really use those as much. That might be a direction to go to save some money on the retail price of the main system. I don't know.
And buying new Joy-Cons.
Because it sounds like you're going to need new Joy-Cons one way or the other.
It does. So the rumors about the Switch 2 Joy-Con that came out this week is that they are, instead of having the slide-in connector like the current Joy-Con have on Switch, where it slides in and it makes that very distinctive click that ended up becoming the rallying cry for Switch. It's before every trailer for Switch. It's the Switch's branding now at this point. That clicking sound when it snaps in, that's going to be gone. Or maybe they found a new way to make the sound, because
I'm guessing if this is like a magnetized.
They're saying that now the new Joy-Con will attach to Switch 2 with magnetism, some type of magnetic something or other.
Well, my guess is it's going to be more or less the same. I bet they will slide on the same way, except instead of like latches, like plastic latches, it will just lock in with a magnet.
With a magnet?
Well, it'll probably be still like a rail, but like it'll just you'll guide it in, and the magnet will catch. Whether that will make a sound, I don't know.
I think it kind of has to, doesn't it?
Maybe, unless they find a way to put it from the side, and you kind of got like a snap on from the magnet.
Yeah,
but that's a strong magnet to put right next to a screen.
It's weird to have magnets in any electronics. Yeah, well, honestly,
there are magnets in a lot, but it's just like not one strong enough to hold a controller on there. And then you get. I mean, they have to have some kind of railing or something, so that when you're holding it, you don't accidentally like snap them off.
We also have to protect the magnetism from reaching outside the controller, because if very powerful magnets, you get them next to your credit card, it wipes out the data on your credit card, not on your chip, but it will wipe out the strip. So you have to be careful using magnets and electronics. And it's Nintendo. I'm sure it's way ahead of this. I'm bringing up stuff they thought about like 3 years ago or whatever. But I do think there will be. It's kind of silly, but I do think there will be something lost if the new Joy-Con don't have some kind of a sound when they connect.
Well, to me, that sounds like they have another idea.
Yeah, that could be. Or maybe the new Joy-Con are just so mind-blowing that people won't worry about the sound anymore.
Or maybe when you put it in, the speaker just makes the click sound.
That would be hilarious.
Like how phones make the shutter sound.
Yeah, that's possible. So look, I'm kind of split on the Joy-Con. I like the functionality. I am not averse to motion-controlled games, so I play like Splatoon 2 with motion controls to fine-tune my aim. There's certain things where I like it.
Although, again, the Pro Controller does that too. I never have needed to pull these things off.
I feel like the Pro Controller, I'm not as good with the gyros in that for some reason. It doesn't feel as natural, or it doesn't feel like it works as much. It feels like it's subdued a little bit in the Pro Controller.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't used the Joy-Cons to know the difference, but also I don't really use the gyro anymore.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. And that may be a thing too, where Nintendo's like, you think there will be motion controls in the Joy-Con too?
Yeah, I think so. I can't see Nintendo dropping that. It's too much part of their brand.
And again, if we're considering backwards compatibility,
there's people that swear by the motion control aiming for like the bow and arrow and Zelda and stuff like that.
I like playing shooters with motion controls, provided if they're working well. And I'll say this, like, the Joy-Con worked way better than the Wiimote as far as like motion controlling and pointing, way more accurate, and you didn't even need the goofy bar that you needed with the Wii. So they did advance the technology for Switch. We'll see if they can do it again for Switch 2, but as of right now, those are the big takeaways as far as what we can expect for the Joy-Con for the Switch 2. Also in that same report, it stated that the Switch 2 will be bigger than the current Switch, but not quite as big as the Steam Deck. So somewhere in between Switch and Steam Deck on the size. That makes sense to me. I thought it might be at least as big as Steam Deck, because if you're going to jam this full of next-gen hardware and...
Oh, they're not.
Right. That's what I was getting at. Like, it's a little discouraging to hear that it's smaller than Steam Deck.
No, it's going to be the same jump as every other Nintendo generation. They're going to be one behind, as always.
Well, remember, the jump from the GameCube to the Wii was 0. It was basically the same exact hardware, which is why it was easy to make it backwards compatible.
It was more. People talking
Not
about...
much.
They were kind of two GameCubes strapped to each other in terms of, like, RAM and sort of things. But it did not have as good image processing power, and not having a digital out really hurt it.
Well, I think the launch unit did, and then they removed it eventually.
No, it never did.
Really?
Never did.
You could not use the component cables?
No.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's why if you play...
For 480p.
There were a bunch of... I mean, it did 480p, but out of the standard slot, but it did not do it as well as the GameCube did out of the digital out.
I don't think you can do 480p without a digital slot.
I mean, it may have been digital coming out of it, but the image quality was just not as good as the GameCube.
Yeah, I agree.
The out. Partly because the processing of the digital out for the GameCube was in the cord, and there were plenty of... I saw several, and I believe I did it myself, like side-by-sides of the GameCube Metroid Prime and Metroid Prime running on the Wii. On the GameCube, it's much sharper.
Yeah.
It's very obviously looks better.
Yeah.
And to the point that it got... Because originally I was like, oh, I don't need my GameCube hooked up anymore because the Wii plays GameCube games. And
then
after comparison enough, I'm like, oh, because I would put them in. I'm like, why doesn't this look good?
Everything looked blurry on Wii.
It was very subdued and blurry. Even the colors were a little muted in places. And I ended up putting the GameCube back, hooked the GameCube back up because I'm like, if I want to play Metroid Prime or Star Fox Adventures or Rogue Squadron, I'm going to play it on this because it looks way better. And it still is hooked up, and the Wii is not.
Yeah. My Wii's in
probably
a box.
Partly because the Wii U is hooked up. So if I
redundancy
wanted to play Wii games, I'd play it on the Wii U, which actually also looks better than the Wii.
It does. Yeah.
The Wii was a piece of shit.
It really was.
Really, from a hardware point of view, it was not a good system.
Yeah, I agree.
And not that it didn't have its good moments, but like I'll tell you, one of the reason I got into Dolphin, the emulator, was to play my copies of Xenoblade Chronicles and Endless Ocean. Blue World.
The Zelda games look really good on Dolphin too.
On those because like they looked like crap off the Wii, and like you put them through the Dolphin, and Xenoblade looks gorgeous.
Oh my god,
Eternal Blue looks gorgeous.
Insane how good everything looks on Dolphin.
Like yeah. And like now,
there's some really cool details hidden.
At least I don't have to worry about that with the Switch. Switch looks good. Switch looks crisp. They fixed the image quality problem. I'm looking forward to Let's
take another step here.
My number 2, but like I'm saying, my number 2 anticipated game is coming out on Friday.
Yeah.
Endless Ocean, first time in 15 years.
Did you see the reviews for it?
I don't care.
Okay.
I know what Endless Ocean is.
Okay. Johnny Hurricane, man, how are you doing? I hope you're doing good. I actually saw you were playing a game that I was playing this week. I saw you on PSN, that you were on there playing the same stuff I was this week. So hope you're doing good, man. I haven't seen you or talked to you for a while. I'm surprised people haven't jumped in to talk about the Wii and the GameCube, but maybe I shouldn't. MySkey says you could do 480p with the component cable, but it was not the best.
No.
Yeah. What else we got here? Justin Orman Dolphin is great. It really is. It makes you realize that some of those old Nintendo games had stuff in them that you couldn't even see.
Yeah, they had it in them. I mean, when you put Mario Galaxy through there, it's like it looks like the next generation.
I know. It's really crazy.
Just a shame.
It really is a shame. So anyway, that's
once again, like if they were on, and maybe they wouldn't be successful if they were on par hardware wise, but if they're on par with Sony, the Mario games would look like the Mario movie.
I know.
Like
it's there. Yeah. But alas. Okay, so that's the latest on the Switch 2. I'm sure more information will keep trickling in as we get closer to its launch date in early 2025. It seems crazy saying 2025. Next up, in housekeeping, we got some sales numbers for Xbox Series X this week, and Matt, they were abysmal. So, a year ago, almost to the day, Microsoft announced that Xbox Series X hardware sales were down 30% year over year. Mm-hmm. Last week, a year to the date, after Microsoft announced that first 30% deficit year over year, it announced that once again the hardware was down 30% year over year. For over the last 2 years, that would be, what, like 50% down or something like that?
Nah, it's less than that.
Is it?
It's not, 30% down off of 30% down?
Off, yeah. Anyway, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's around
not
half.
Good,
yeah. It's what's gonna happen, Matt? I don't see anything turning this around.
Well, I think the only thing they have left is I think your Hail Mary is you launch the next system with Elder Scrolls 6 exclusive to it.
Yeah.
And see if that moves the needle. That's it. What else you got?
I don't know. The fact that Microsoft, like to me, the one chance it really had was to not make its games go to other platforms, was to keep those games exclusive to its platform. Now, I realize due to some legal finagling, it had to basically acquiesce in certain territories just to get the deal to go through, but it feels to me like the only chance it had was to hoard those exclusive games and create a reason for people to own an Xbox.
Well, they might still do that eventually. Those contracts only last so long.
Yeah.
But that's like going to be 5-7 years from now.
And maybe by that time, they're ready to launch their next console, and to your point,
Elder
Scrolls might be ready to launch, maybe.
Well, I think you're going to be looking at that in like 2027.
It seems that way.
That's really the last like ace up the sleeve they have. Because like what else do they have that can move the needle?
I mean, nothing. Fable's not going to do it. Gears of War isn't going to do it. Halo already didn't do it. Forza's not going to do it.
Fallout could theoretically do it given the explosion of popularity there, but they're not going to have a Fallout ready for a decade. So one of the biggest errors I think they've made, like Bethesda has made here, is hoarding these 3 pillars to themselves because it takes them half a decade to even get one out.
That was one of my points in the grind that I published on Friday.
So by the time you get by the time you repeat the cycle, you're making a sequel to a game that most people are too old or too young to remember anymore.
Yeah.
Like, when was Fallout 4?
8 years ago?
Was it 2016? 2014?
2016, I think.
Was it?
I think it was right after we launched SIFTD, because there's an eval of Fallout 4
5 years after Skyrim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what? You're looking at 50. So you're looking at 15 years, but look at Skyrim. You're looking at 15 plus years between installments on these things.
Yeah.
Like, who's even going to remember what Starfield was?
We actually just ruined another topic in our housekeeping, which is later on.
But like, that's the thing, is like this
Todd Howard announced
this lack of synergy that they have going on here. It's like, well, what there's no plan.
Well, Todd Howard just announced yesterday in an interview with Kinda Funny that they're going to start farming out their IP to other developers.
Yeah, I mean, that was good to hear, but it's like, again, $1 short and a day late with Microsoft stuff. Like, it's just constantly playing catch up.
It's a huge failure on Bethesda's part to not have that IP. I mean, this whole Fallout TV show, watching Fallout 76, watching Fallout 4 become one of the most played games, it is just egg on the face of Bethesda. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the wake-up call that Todd got. He's like, wait a minute, like, they're right. Like, we should have had a new Fallout game to capitalize on for this show, and 100%. We can't do it because we take 11 years to make a freaking game.
Should have had a new Fallout game set in that area.
Yeah. The lack of foresight is astounding.
It is.
And so it's good that they're making the change, but it feels like a day late and 2 franchises short to me. So
yeah, you needed to have something new that was set in the Southwest that wasn't. I mean, I know everybody loves New Vegas, but like putting a person who doesn't play a lot of games and isn't into New Vegas, forget it.
In the desert,
forget it.
Yeah,
forget it.
It's not going to work.
Because I'll tell you, I mean, I replayed it a couple years ago and I still like it, but you know what? It's kind of boring.
Yeah, I found it boring. I never finished.
It takes forever to get to the actual meat of it. It's all talking. It's there's a reason Fallout 3 was as popular as it was.
Yeah.
And that's the game I've told people that come in. It's like, oh, I want to play Fallout now. What should I play? I tell them to play Fallout 3.
Yeah. Well, also the Fallout 4 next gen update that just launched is bunk.
Well, broke everything.
It's broken, and so
also I don't like Fallout 4, so I don't tell people to play that.
It's just crazy that Bethesda dropped the ball so hard on this. Like, they've had all this time to think about this.
Yeah, it's not like you didn't know this was coming. It's like were you just not planning for it to be a hit? Did you not think that was going to happen?
I mean, I think
were they just sitting like there thinking like, oh, well, all the people just funnel all of them to Fallout 76 and make bank off the microtransactions that way? That might have been what the thinking was.
I think even they're a little shocked at what's happened.
I imagine they. I mean, I would imagine they wouldn't have thought they were going to be the number 2 show of all time on Amazon.
Yeah.
Like that. I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody did.
I would have expected Fallout to be successful.
But they should have had a better idea because they watched the show.
Yeah. Well, Todd was a producer on it. He clearly knew how good it was.
Yeah. So I don't know what the fix is for Xbox and Microsoft at this point.
The world is such a star of that show that it doesn't even matter that the story would be different. All you need to do is put people in that world.
Yeah.
And like I mean, obviously it's.
They're playing Fallout Shelter.
Right.
I mean, people are now playing Fallout Shelter.
Fallout 4's sales are up 7,500%. Imagine if that was a $70 game that was selling like that.
Yeah. Well, also people are having to go and like,
or people just like, hey, just sign up for this Game Pass thing.
Yeah.
And it's like they blew it. They blew it so hard.
You can't go into Best Buy and buy Fallout 4. Like, you can't go into retail stores and find it. It's so long gone. You have to buy it digitally or go into a used store.
But they did put them all on sale, so it's like, okay, it's like $5 to buy Fallout 4, so that's cool. But like, even and cheap to get into all of them. But like, I already had them all. It's not like it didn't matter. But like, I went and booted up Fallout 76 again for the first time in forever.
I'm sure a lot of people did.
And it is a pretty solid Fallout game. Like, you barely even know there are other people there. You know?
Now it is. It wasn't at first.
No. But it turned it in. I'm not saying it's a new No Man's Sky style turnaround, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, they figured it out.
Mitch, what's up, man? Mitch Sikorsky is in our chat. Thank you for Twitch Prime. I hope you're doing good. Commander Fett, thank you for Twitch Prime as well. Appreciate that. Hope you're doing good, Mitch. Hope everything's going great for you. As you guys know, Mitch used to work with us here on GameFace, and now he's working at a developer. I hope that's all going great. AJ the Legend asks, is there any chance that Microsoft says no moss and gets out? they're in too deep.
Not next gen, I don't think.
I mean, they maybe not hardware, but I mean, Game Pass is going to go. Like, they're not going to bail on Game Pass at the very least. Like, there's a slight chance they may not have another console, and that might be the smart thing, honestly.
No, there will be another console.
But
no question.
Even if they do ditch the console, Game Pass will go on. Like, Xbox isn't going to leave the market, I guess is what I'm
Xbox
saying.
will remain a brand one way or the other, but I think there will be one more console. I think if I were them, and it's a long shot, and you're just working with nothing at this point for the most part. I would just say Elder Scrolls 6 exclusive to Xbox, and I mean no PC.
Yeah. Oh, no PC.
No PC.
I mean, that might be the right move, dude.
Like a year late, PC a year later.
Yeah.
You want to play Elder Scrolls 6, you buy an Xbox.
And then maybe you say, we'll put it on PlayStation in 3 years or something.
When all the expansions are done, we'll do a Game of the Year on PlayStation.
Yeah. That may be the only route they have to
buy our system, or wait a year to play on PC, wait 3 years to play on PlayStation. That's what I do.
And honestly,
it's ruthless, and it's not very consumer friendly.
You need to be ruthless, though.
That's
where they are now. They need to be ruthless.
Guess what you had to do to play Final Fantasy VII? Buy a PlayStation.
Yeah, I honestly think they should be more ruthless. Period. I've been saying that all along with all these exclusives that they have. Like, we'll see how it all shakes out. They can
play nice with Nintendo as much as they want because they're not really directly in competition with them. But
not now. But we'll see what the Switch 2 does.
Sony's out there by themselves at this point.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said on a couple episodes ago. I'm like, I always think about with each episode of GameFace, like, can we make sure that we have something from all 3 platforms? I want to make sure that the show is entertaining and interesting for everybody. But now I'm realizing, like, you don't need to do that anymore because everybody has a PlayStation. No one's buying Xbox. There were a couple Xbox fans who were kind of, Shane. I'm like, I get it, but that's just the facts.
Yeah, I don't know what I mean, we'll see for Hellblade 2.
I mean, we're going to cover Xbox games, obviously, but I'm just saying, like, it's not like this thing that I need to think about all the time when I'm stacking GameFace anymore because most people don't have an Xbox.
And to be clear, it's not like I don't think those things, I'm very excited for Hellblade 2
Me too,
and Avowed. And even Flight Sim looks really cool because of it's actually got like stuff to do.
Yeah.
You know? But like I'm not under any delusion that that's going to move the needle for the mainstream audience. You know, just because I'm interested in it doesn't mean that like
Avowed is not going to sell consoles.
No, not at all.
It's not going to happen.
It's going to make me happy, hopefully.
Right. I'll be glad that I have an Xbox to play it. But
PC for me, like that's the other thing is like I don't really need.
Yeah, you don't even need an Xbox anymore because everything's on PC. Yeah. And in fact, we're going to talk about a game in a little bit that's only on Game Pass for PC right now. It's like this big sleeper hit. And you can't even get it on Xbox Game Pass, only on PC Game Pass. So anyway, things are not looking good in Xbox land. And I don't know what they can really do to change it, honestly. It'll be interesting to see. They're saying 2015 was Fallout 4. Yeah. I knew it was like right after we launched. Caustic Kip. Thank you for Twitch Prime. Mighty Pony Girl says, meanwhile, Beyond Good and Evil fans are looking at Dragon Age fans like, oh, you sweet summer children. Mitchell Ness.
Hey, at least Dragon Age 4 exists.
Yeah. Certainly Mexican. Thank you for Twitch Prime. What else? TV Hardy. Thank you for Twitch Prime. Heath Demon says Rebirth underperformed pretty badly. That is true.
Yeah.
Now Square Enix is like saying, they just canceled like $100 million worth of projects to focus on their own IP.
Remember what I said. The next Final Fantasy doesn't exist yet. It's going to be something they make, something new that they make, and that becomes their new tentpole.
Yeah.
Because Final Fantasy just
not doing it anymore. It's like you said. It's an old person.
It's an old person thing. And I'll tell you, man, I can tell you where that happened. Final Fantasy 13. They spent 10 years trying to make lightning trying to make fetch happen with lightning, and it just wasn't gonna fucking happen. They made 3 of those damn games, and no one fucking cared outside of Japan, and now no one in Japan cares because everybody switched to mobile, and they got nobody left that's gonna pay attention to Final Fantasy.
Man, I'm starting to wonder if all games that we like are old person games.
Not all of them.
I'm really starting
Zelda
to think
isn't.
if like console gaming is becoming something that like old people do.
A little bit of it, but like Zelda's not. Mario's not.
Yeah.
Every child I know plays the Zelda Switch games.
That's true.
Now, part of the reason Tears of the Kingdom is not an old person game is because it does incorporate the kind of building aspect that like stuff like Minecraft and Roblox does. So they were smart to do that.
Yeah.
As much as I don't particularly enjoy it, that's the old person game. It's like the old person game is a real Zelda game.
Right.
That is like just a straight up dungeon crawl.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Dark Souls, I think is generally older. I don't know any kids that play that, but like online multiplayer, always there.
Fortnite,
always there.
Stuff like that.
Fortnite, but also Call of Duty.
Yeah, kids play
general
COD.
shooters. Like Overwatch at one point, not anymore. Diablo. I know a lot of kids that play Diablo 4.
But it is starting to feel like it's something that like adults, which is so weird. That gaming is something that adults do, like,
but that
versus the kids.
But that also doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean there's
I'm not.
It doesn't mean it's
I'm
not.
totally fine
and
with
it doesn't mean that's what. But like you gotta be careful with this industry because they're so youth focused and market youth focused that they can miss the forest for the trees, which is things like the conventional wisdom is your target audience is 18 to 35, no matter what. That's just not true anymore.
It's nowhere near true.
The aging demographics are huge, and they're still engaged with media because everyone forgets. For all you talk about this and that, about that, all the discourse on everything online. But you know what the thing I've never seen anyone talk about online was that was the #1 show on television for years? Yellowstone.
Oh.
Because it was watched by baby boomers.
Right.
Watched by people over 55.
Who don't use social media. Yeah.
But they don't talk on social media. But it was the biggest show on television.
It was huge, yeah.
For years.
Yeah.
And huge. I never saw a single tweet about it.
I never watched a single episode of it.
I watched one episode of it, and I realized that I was too young for that shit.
Oh, we were too young.
That's our parents watched that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of our parents.
Yeah, there are.
And there's an event, as we get older, they're going to want to cater to us and the elder millennials, the geriatric millennials.
Well, here's the thing. When we die, there needs to be someone standing in line waiting to take our place. If that doesn't happen, the industry shrinks.
Well, that's the disturbing part is there isn't.
I know. That's my point I'm getting at.
The problem isn't that we play older games. The problem is that like the younger kids don't care.
They don't want to play our games.
They want to play our games, but they also don't want to play any other games in a lot of ways. And it's a bigger problem with traditional like narrative media because like I have friends who have kids who have never watched a movie.
Wow.
And have no interest in watching a movie at 10 years old.
They're like 2 hours? Like that's crazy.
The whole story. I
can't look at my phone. TikTok.
Yeah.
It's like anything over 30 seconds. No way. That's a little crazy. So
and look, it's not like I don't fully disagree. It's not like I don't fully identify with that because that's one of the reasons I'm so behind on all the popular television. Is I'm like, you want me to watch 13 hours of this thing? I could just watch a 2-hour movie and get a complete story in that amount of time. And like, if I'm going to spend 13 hours watching something, it's probably going to be Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So like in a sense, I have the short attention span in that regard. I don't have. I'd rather sit down and watch a 2-hour movie than a 13-hour TV series, unless it's a really good TV series. Like X-Men 97.
Yeah, there aren't enough of those, unfortunately.
Yeah, the number of TV series that I watch and I'm just like, this is amazing, and I'm happy to sit and keep watching it. I can count those on one hand over the last 5 years. Yeah. And one of them's Fallout.
Yeah.
One of them's For All Mankind.
Last of Us.
One of them's X-Men 97. One of them's Last of Us.
Yeah.
One of them's Succession.
I actually haven't got into that.
Succession's really good.
I should, though, I think. Yeah. So anyway, Xbox is on the ropes here, people. The good news is, if you're an Xbox fan, Microsoft has deep pockets. It can keep losing money. And the truth is, it's not even losing money on Xbox. Through all this, it's not losing money right now. So
Vincent's watching Knuckles. I forgot that one.
Oh, I haven't even heard of that one.
It's a Knuckles the Echidna got his own spin-off series.
Oh, the Sonic show. And actually doesn't even have Knuckles in it.
Well, no, he is in it.
But they said like he's like not the main character, right?
He's part of it. But like, here's the thing. I saw one of the game journalist guys calculated how much of the show he's in, like 74 minutes or whatever. He's like saying it's like some percentage. Knuckles is in that show the same percentage of time as Walter White is in Breaking Bad. So unless you don't think Walter White is the main character of Breaking Bad, Knuckles is showing up just fine in that show.
Interesting.
They're just not completely focused on him because A, who wants to watch Knuckles forever, and B, every time Knuckles is on screen, they're spending obscene amounts of money for the CG for him. I haven't watched it, and I probably won't.
Yeah.
For one thing, I don't even remember what my Paramount Plus login is, but because I just have that for Star Trek, and I haven't watched those in a while.
It's got mediocre reviews. It hasn't reviewed well.
I wouldn't imagine. I will say that it's fascinating to see like the third movie coming out this December, where like. And like, look, there's a grading curve here because they're for kids.
Yeah.
But like, if this thing's any good with Keanu Reeves playing Shadow, wow, what a fucking time to be alive, right?
I know.
They're low key on the track of making one of the greatest trilogies of all time.
I know, it's funny.
Like, not that these are like great films, but like they're all about as good as each other, and they're all pretty good.
And it made it to 3 of them.
And they got to 3, and They did it.
Yeah,
like I'm having some trouble with that.
I watched the first one. I made it halfway through the second one, and I'm done.
They're fun. I mean, but it's like, you see what I mean, where it's like, if you were into that, they're probably they're great.
Yeah.
You
I'm
know,
sure if I were 12
they're
or whatever,
great
I'd be
family
way more
movies.
into it.
You know, it's like there's only one other like trilogy of like the last decade that I think really pulled that off, and that's the Planet of the Apes reboot.
Yeah.
And
which
like,
was shockingly good.
Yeah. And how weird is that? Like Sonic might be one of the only trilogies in film history that doesn't drop the ball in the third movie.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll keep our fingers
but
crossed.
Like, wow.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And they did it before Mario. Like,
yeah.
Man. So the Sonic movies just kind of blow my mind every once in a while all over again, or like I'll see some like 5-year-old kid running around talking about Sonic, and I'm just like, that's so weird. It's happen? So weird that Sega like crashed and burned as hard. All that shit happened. You know, they're not like that kid probably doesn't know what Sega is, but they know what Sonic is. Yeah. Like Sonic, you know. And there was a thing I remember. Probably you saw it too because there's a thing when you first saw Sonic and you're like, yes. Like that, like there's an element of Sonic where you first saw Sonic back in 1991 or whatever, or whenever they first started showing up in the magazines. You're like, yeah, like that's a winner. Like that.
I got one of my nephews. He's
bingo.
A huge Sonic fan. He's like 6. Last Christmas, I got him a Sonic nightlight that lights up with Sonic's face all over his ceiling and stuff. Like, the kids love Sonic.
Like, that was Sonic's one of the few things I can remember in my lifetime where I saw it for the first time and I was like, iconic.
Yeah.
Like, that's gonna work.
Just his silhouette alone.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it worked so well that it didn't even need Sega.
That's true.
Really. Like, it's more with it by itself.
Let's move on. Next, we're going to talk about the biggest game debut of the week, easily, and that was Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Now, Matt, I think the thing about... Redeliverance. Now, there was some controversy around the first game and the developers. They did some stuff in the first game that people were a little uneasy about. There was were there some rumors about how they treated their workers at the studio?
I don't remember a whole lot of that. I'm the lead of the head of the studio was a Gamergate supporter and was very he kind of did the whole like, oh, I'm not PC, I'm gonna say like gross things about women and you're gonna get all triggered about it. He was sort of an asshole.
He was trolling, basically.
No, he really believed all that shit. I mean, that was really who he was. He just liked to, he basically showing his ass and saying, no, what are you gonna do about it, kind of thing. Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about the first game.
And there was a thing. With the fact that there's no, this is one of the whitest games ever made. There's no brown people anywhere in this game, and basically he was like, well, it's Bohemia in medieval times. Why would there be? And of course, all the historians were like, actually, there were lots of that was a crossroads, and like people did travel up the Mediterranean and the Middle East and everything. Like you would have definitely seen. Put it this way, you would probably have been way more likely to see a black man in this area than a peasant boy become a knight.
And that's
because
what
that was
about
impossible.
As well. This is also the same story. You're a peasant.
You're the same guy. You're still Henry in this. I did play this, and I liked it okay. I thought it was pretty good. It's a very frustrating combat system that did not have a lot of useful feedback when you're using it, or even when it's teaching you how it works.
The combat looks crappy in this trailer.
Combat is very slow. Yeah, and it was just sort of like. It was a cool idea. It didn't really work very well. And also, I think it was in the CryEngine, which always adds.
The game was kind of busted at launch, wasn't it?
It was a little broken, and they mostly fixed it. But I'll tell you, I loaded it up on my PC to kind of remind myself of it, and I had to jump through so many weird hoops to get this thing to work. Because this game's from like 2014, and it's 10 years. They never really fully fixed it, even on PC, and like. The mods don't really work properly if you don't get a certain kind of compilation from Nexus mods, because apparently they did a final update in like 2020 to sort of like make it mod compatible, and it actually just broke all the mods, and they never. So basically, the community had to kind of recompile everything into like sort of, you want this kind of experience, use this pack. You want this kind of experience, use this pack, and you just take it and sort of plug it all in through the Nexus mods Vortex thing, and it kind of fixes the bugs and makes the quest work and various things like that. Very similar to sort of what you have to do with like Skyrim or something like that. But overall, it works.
It sold very well.
It did sell very well, because the thing about it is there's nothing else quite like it. Because it is a weird sort of mix of like, it does feel like going through sort of like a weird Ren Fair thing.
That's a good way to put it.
There's a lot of history. You're the only non-historical person of note in the game. Like everyone else in the dates are a little off. Like the main villain who you see in that trailer is the bald guy.
The bald dude, yeah.
So he died. That guy.
There he is.
So he died in real life. He died a year before the events of the first game take place.
Okay.
Because the sacking and attack on the village in the beginning of the first game is a real event in history. But that happened like 6 months after the bald guy died. He died in a battle in December.
So they retconned it a little bit.
They're loosely based on real historical people, which is cool. And it's funny, like if you look up, like the portraits and stuff, they did make them look more or less like these people. Like the accuracy is there in a weird way.
Did you notice anything in this trailer that's different from the first game?
I mean, there's sieges. The siege weaponry and the large-scale battles are new.
Okay.
The crossbows are new. Like the mounted combat is new. The gunpowder, like you didn't have gunpowder weapons before.
So a lot.
That's about it.
That's pretty significant.
Like the exploding things, there wasn't really explosion stuff before. Obviously, they're using the new version of the CryEngine, so it looks way better. Yeah, I don't know. Definitely. Oh yes, Mike's Q is correct. You could not pet the dogs before.
And so they made sure to put it in the trailer.
I think. Could you pet the dogs before?
I mean, my guess is you couldn't. That's why they made sure to put that shot in the trailer.
Yeah, I mean,
to let fans know.
You could pet your dog,
but not other
dogs. You had
a
dog that followed you around in the game, and you could pet him. Yeah,
but not other people's dogs.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
This is coming to PC, PS5, and Xbox Series. Yeah. Also, it's like coming before the end of the year, right?
Yeah, I said this year.
That was a bit of a surprise.
That's Wittenberg. That's not Wittenberg. It's Gutenberg, I think. But it's not. You're not supposed to call it that. You're supposed to call it by the actual Czech name. I can't remember what the actual word for it is.
I never played the first game at all
because they mention that city constantly in the first game, but you never go to it. So one of the big things in this is you're actually going to go to the big city.
This game the first one looked really boring to me, and I just never had any interest in playing.
I think you would have hated it in part because it's the least forgiving stamina bar I've ever seen in a game.
Forget it.
Least forgiving.
Not my thing.
You can maybe get 2 swings out of a sword before your stamina is done. And you're using the same stamina to block and dodge.
Oh, Lord.
So forget it. Like early on, you have to basically talk your way out of everything early on in the game because you're not going to win the fight.
Wow.
And you have to do these things where you have to talk to the various trainers, and they don't give you a hint about this. But one of the basic ways the game functions is you block and you counter. And just like you parry in general, like you do the last minute block, and then you can do an automatic. You don't unlock. You can't do that originally. You have to unlock it by doing a training with the guy who trains you in the beginning. But it never tells you should talk to him again to get more moves. So you don't have that move available to you until you talk to him, train with him, and then get that move. But for a long time, I did not have that move, and I couldn't figure out how to win a fight because I couldn't counter it. And of course, the enemies counter constantly. Like, how do I do that? And it's so poorly communicated that it's very difficult and very frustrating.
Yeah.
And it sucks because there is an element of this game where you're just like, wow, I really wish I liked this more because it is so unique and it is trying to do this unusual thing where it's trying to, there's no magic in this game, there's no dragons, there's no orcs, it's just medieval. It's grounded in the sense
you're fighting other humans.
Yeah, it's just people and politics and
no fantasy,
and
no sci-fi.
Survival in the wilderness and stuff and and things like that.
Yeah.
So but this does look like a direct continuation of it, where Henry has become a knight and he's kind of continuing on. He's still looking for vengeance against the bald guy. It even has a couple lines from the original game. There's a line in the trailer where it's hero, life of adventure is the problem with the life of adventure is it can end before it gets going or something. That's your father from the first hour of the first game.
Wow.
So there's a flashback there. So they're definitely tying it into the first one, which is a little funny to me because it's there's got to be a lot. I mean, you're definitely hoping for this to break out beyond the audience of the first game.
Again, it sold pretty well, the first one.
It did.
I was surprised how well it sold, actually.
But you don't really see people talk about it much.
No. It's been a while, though. Has it been 5 years at this point?
It's been 10 years.
Really?
I want to say it was 2014, 2015.
Really? The first game's 10 years old now?
Maybe it was 8 years ago. Wow. I really can't remember.
That blows my mind. So anyway, again, it is coming out before the end of this year. They're pulling kind of a Bethesda there with showing it, and then it's coming out like a few months later. So something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, there's no hard day for it.
Yeah,
like,
they haven't announced a date, which means it could get delayed out of the year.
2018? That's more recent than I thought.
That's around where I thought it was, yeah.
Still, 6 years.
Yeah, that's still a long time. Which is why they're able to release it before the end of 2024. Next up.
Maybe it just felt older when I replayed it.
That probably, yeah. Next up, we got some information. Remember back when Fortnite had characters from PlayStation and Xbox joining? So you got Master Chief. Who did they add from PlayStation? Oh, Kratos.
Right.
So they launched those kind of like side by side.
Finally learned how to use a gun.
Yeah. They launched those alongside each other, but there was no Nintendo entry. And honestly, I didn't even pick up on it, that there was no Nintendo character that came out in that whole time period. And now we've learned why. And the reason that they never released any Nintendo characters into Fortnite is because Nintendo said no. So basically, Epic, wanted to put Samus from Metroid into Fortnite, which makes, of all the Nintendo characters, she makes the most sense.
It's like her or Star Fox.
Yeah,
basically.
Either one of those, because they both use guns or whatever.
But that's the thing, is you got to remember, Nintendo doesn't think Samus kills people.
Right.
They don't know what bounty hunters are.
I forgot about that. And so what ultimately happened was Fortnite, or Epic, did a bunch of work on it to get Samus into the game, and Nintendo decided that it did not want Samus playable on other platforms. It was like, no, if Samus is in the game, that needs to be a Switch exclusive, and they said no. To me, Matt, that is some of the most short-sighted...
I don't think so.
Really?
Nintendo doesn't need it.
I mean, you always need to market to new people.
No, you don't.
I mean, you can always do better. No matter how well you're doing, you can always do better.
Anyone who thought Nintendo would do this is insane.
Well, I'm not saying I thought that they would do it. I just think it's stupid that they didn't do it.
I think it's stupid that Epic ever thought that they could get them.
Really?
I think they should never have tried.
It's the biggest video game in the world.
They should
by several magnitudes.
They should never. It doesn't matter to Nintendo. They should never have wasted their time on it, ever. Like Samus in this would make some visuals. But if you think Nintendo was ever going to let her go and be in Fortnite and blow people away and kill people with a gun and do flossing and and
well, no, they were willing to do that as long as she was only in the Nintendo Switch version.
Yeah, well, there's always going to be some weird catch with Nintendo.
That's so dumb. Like, if you want to spread, like, your IP, that's, like, the best free advertising you can ever get on another competitor's platform. Like, it's stupid to me. Again, I think Bethesda was more short-sighted by not having Fallout stuff ready to go with the TV show, but to me, this was pretty stupid.
Well, they should have Fallout stuff in this.
Yeah.
Do they?
They don't, actually. But you're right.
How do you not have
That's another ball.
How do you not have vault suits in this?
Seriously, though. That's another ball that was dropped by Bethesda. There's no doubt about it.
That would have been a good thing to do for when the show launches, have vault suits available in here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, imagine, like, the money
or the sexy ghoul cowboy.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody loves that.
Yep. So anyway, once again, we're seeing Nintendo's sort of isolationist perspective on the industry. I mean, you're right, Matt. Like, it's not something typically Nintendo does. I'm just saying it's dumb and it needs to change its ways. And it has changed its ways in a lot of ways, but not in this way. It still feels like everything is a walled garden.
I just don't think it. Yeah, I just don't think it'll ever change because that's Nintendo. Like, Nintendo wants control of their characters, and they will never relinquish that. They find that to be key to their brand and key to their success, and you're never going to change their mind on that.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought that we'd see Xbox exclusives on PlayStation and Switch either. So
I mean, it would be a good idea to expose younger kids to Samus in preparation for Metroid Prime 4, but.
Yeah, they're just again it's short-sighted.
You got to remember who you're dealing with here. Like,
yeah.
It's just they're never gonna care.
Yeah, in some ways, Nintendo still hasn't changed, but it has changed in a lot of ways, thankfully.
Well, I mean, they've changed in the sense that like they used to not be able to put like crosses on tombstones.
Yeah,
and now half the fucking
used to not be able to play their games online.
Well, now half the fucking games in the eShop all say hentai in the title. I'm like, what the hell is going? Like, that's weird, right?
Yeah.
That's weird that like half the games on the eShop are porn.
Yeah.
And they still won't let Samus be on a PlayStation game.
Yeah, it's insane.
But I mean, not that it would ever be any different. Not that you'd ever. But like, again, like on one, I understand that Epic's is like, hey, maybe we can be the ones that finally like break Nintendo out
because
of their
again,
shell.
it's the biggest game in the world
But,
by
like,
so many
no.
magnitudes.
Nintendo
It's
so
just
doesn't
like,
care.
nope, we're good.
So doesn't care.
It's so funny. So Nintendo, in some ways, will just never change. It just seems to be the way that it is. So, yeah, if you're waiting for any Nintendo skins to appear on Fortnite, you're going to be waiting for a really, really long time.
I'm sure that it's like, and like you wondered, like, do they disallow PlayStation stuff on their platform? Like, that's not a thing, right?
No.
You can play as all the PlayStation people on Switch.
Yeah. So now they're getting the free advertising.
Yeah, well, but they don't. But Nintendo doesn't see it that way, though. They don't see it as free advertising.
No,
they see
don't.
it as basically compromising their characters.
Yeah. Making them do things that they aren't in control of them doing. Yeah.
On another platform, and who knows?
Yeah, I mean, that might be part of why Nintendo's multiplayer stuff is so anemic. Maybe Nintendo doesn't want to empower the player to do things with Nintendo's characters that Nintendo may not be 1,000% in control of.
Yeah, that could be.
Who knows? Nintendo's wackadoodle in a lot of ways still. Next up, we talked about how Activision Blizzard, has finally kind of been assimilated into the Borg at Microsoft and Xbox. Xbox is now reaping the rewards. They're collecting all those subscription costs from World of Warcraft and all that stuff. However, we did get a little bump in the road this week when it was announced that BlizzCon 2024 is canceled. Matt?
And nothing of value was lost.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've been to BlizzCon a couple times. I thought it was pretty cool. It's not
back
quite,
in the day.
Yeah, it's not quite up to PAX levels of like awesome. But
BlizzCon really seems to have basically BlizzCon lost its luster after the Diablo Immortal thing.
It feels like it.
Like, don't you guys have phones thing? That was
Right.
the end of BlizzCon.
It kind of
That was the beginning of the end.
That was what, 2017?
Something like that, yeah.
Somewhere around there. Yeah. I mean, they did end up doing it again.
That fundamentally seemed to change the attitude that the fans had towards Blizzard and vice versa.
Yeah. Now, they did have it again, and they did great. They used to do pay-per-views of BlizzCon and make a ton of money off of BlizzCon.
San Diego Comic-Con could learn a few things from.
Yeah. And they say they're not doing it this year, but they will consider doing it in the future. Now,
part of it has to be they just don't have anything to show.
Yeah. I mean, well, because they just canceled like a lot of the games that they had in development that
what
were
are you
behind the
talk
scenes.
about? Like more Hearthstone stuff and Diablo's next season that everyone's going to hate? Like,
World of Warcraft, I mean, it's rolling out with updates. It feels like every month there's like a big update to it.
Do people need to fly to Anaheim for that? No.
Right.
Like Overwatch is nothing. Like it's just sort of an awkward time for Blizzard.
It does feel that
You probably don't want to highlight any of that right now.
Yeah. It's just a little weird.
And let's be honest, most people just are interested in BlizzCon because you get like the super exclusive codes that you can then turn around and sell for $150 on eBay.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a little odd that Microsoft finally takes control of Blizzard and then they cancel Blizzard's big annual event. So if people are worried, if you're a Blizzard fan, you're like, oh, what's going to happen once Microsoft owns them? Everything's going to stay the same, right? And then one of the first things that's announced is BlizzCon is canceled.
Yeah,
it's
they probably just canceled the things they were going to announce.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
You're probably right. That's probably what happened. Yeah. Because they had that survival game that they had worked on for like 5 years. And they just canceled it. And now they're talking about like they're hiring for some new game. It's like, no, just go back to that survival game you almost had finished and finish the frickin' thing.
Now, to be fair, the survival thing's kind of over.
I mean, it is. They already canceled it.
No, I mean the survival trend.
Oh, you mean as far as like people enjoying the game?
You're too late a little bit there.
Yeah.
Like,
although they're still coming out every week, it feels like.
Yeah, but how many of them are making
selling
anything?
well. Yeah.
It's like they should have probably canceled that earlier. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the problem here may not be canceling the survival game. The problem is like that should have been canceled 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Because you got to see the writing on the wall with that subgenre. Like, really, that Valheim sort of peaked that, and I don't know if you're getting anything past that.
I'll say one thing that's crazy. They still have QuakeCon, but not having BlizzCon.
Well, QuakeCon is more of like a LAN party.
It is.
So it's like, you don't need anything new for that.
Yeah.
BlizzCon's more of a big, let's see the new stuff, announcements, panels thing.
Yeah. It's a little weird, but I'm not that surprised that it was canceled. I just know if you're a Blizzard fan, you're probably like, what is going on? And you're probably wondering if it's ever going to come back. What about that? Do you think it's really going to come back, Matt, or do you think it's gone for good now?
Yeah, they'll probably do it again at some point when they feel they have something to talk about.
When they have, like, the next StarCraft ready or something like that. When they need to do it, basically, instead of just wanting to do it. Yeah. And that may piss off the fans, honestly. So... But also, I'll admit, there didn't seem like there was a whole lot of uproar about it on SIFTD.
I mean, I have always maintained you do not need to have an annual convention for a company that takes 10 years to put out a game.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand.
It makes sense when like things are more ongoing and permanent, like like World of Warcraft, like a permanent fixture. StarCraft was a permanent fixture, but that's just not really the case anymore. At a certain point, it just becomes like a World of Warcraft convention.
Yeah.
And
I have no interest in that.
What would you do? Like, what do you do there?
None. Not my thing. Andy T. Monahan says, "Go Keeley or go home."
Yeah.
Vincent says that the survival game is probably going to be harvested to make a new game like Overwatch was from Titan. We'll see. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see if they drop the ball on that one too.
Yeah.
It was harvested is the right word there because it wasn't rescued, was it?
Right. Yeah. We'll see. I mean, they just said it was canceled, but to Vincent's point, Blizzard does have a bit of a history of
Blizzard doesn't usually throw things out
completely. Yeah. Yep. Next up, this is something that might make you guys happy. I feel like all the housekeeping so far has been negative Nancy, other than Kingdom Come. Next up, we got some maybe good news I think some of you guys will enjoy. There is a Kingdom Hearts film on the way from Disney.
Okay, well, I'll believe that when the trailer's out.
Yeah. You don't believe it?
Not until it's actually been produced.
Yeah.
Like, they're talking about it, but they've talked about it for 20 years.
Why haven't they done it? It is a no-brainer. It's just money waiting to be made.
Well, because it isn't, really.
You don't think?
Because the audience of Kingdom Hearts is in the 2 to 3 million range, and a Disney movie, to make a big hit, has to have 100 million people see it.
I thought Kingdom Hearts sold better than that.
It did not.
Really?
It sold very well by the standards of the early 2000s, but that is 2 to 3 million copies.
Well, yeah, back then 1 million was a huge hit.
But that is not that is a bomb in a theater.
Wow.
You know, hit movies have 100 million people see them.
Yeah, of course.
So you have to make sure, you have to think that this is going to be, you know, and also...
I mean, some people will go just because it's Disney.
Somewhat, but also Disney doesn't really understand this property very well. They haven't leveraged it very... Definitely
not.
They do own the characters. Mm-hmm. You know, they own Sora and Riku and
the characters
Kairi,
that Square created.
And, they own all the new characters. Any original characters in these games, they own. They don't own the Final Fantasy crossover, but that's also why those characters stopped showing up. Like, you don't see... there were no Square characters that I can recall, except maybe Noctis or somebody in 3. It was like... it became more and more just Disney and these characters. And you'll see them pop up as, like, collector's pins, or they do have people in costume as them in certain parks. It's rare, though. Or you'll see, I think the Florida parks have Goofy and Donald in their Kingdom Hearts outfits that show up very rarely for certain events. But yeah, I think for the most part, Disney's attitude towards Kingdom Hearts has been, it's just too weird and niche to be a breakout hit beyond into the mainstream. Yeah. And they're probably right about that. However, I think maybe this, these days, I think anime and like this weird ass shit and crossovers and multiverse stuff is mainstream enough that you probably get away with it.
You could be smart with marketing, though.
The question just becomes...
And only show the Disney characters in the trailers and the marketing. And then people are like, oh, it's just a movie with all the biggest Disney characters in it. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a way you can do it to make it successful with the mainstream.
Well, that's the thing. Well, it may be, but like it also doesn't lend itself very well to an actual movie structure.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, you can make a road picture out of it, but you're going to not be able to spend a lot of time in each of the different worlds.
Right.
And they've already kind of done that with Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah.
In a way.
That's true.
It's a hard thing to translate into a 2-hour film.
Yeah.
It would make a better TV series, frankly.
Probably. Bite-sized, because then you could go to a different world with every episode and have some flimsy reason for why they went there.
But, like, well, again... We'll see if it actually ends up making it. Like probably.
What do you think the percentage chance is of this film actually being made?
Probably like 60% if they're talking about it publicly.
That's pretty good.
But you never know.
Yeah.
I mean, look, they're making a Tron 3. Anything's fucking possible.
I mean, if you're gonna make that.
Yeah.
Because I love the Tron films. Don't get me wrong, but the last one did not do well financially.
No, neither of them did well.
Yeah.
They're both bombs.
Yeah.
And
I like both of them.
I love the first one. Tron Legacy is a pretty cool movie, but it's an absolutely terrible Tron sequel.
There's lots of nostalgia in that one, I felt like.
I didn't.
Really?
I felt it was all modern and very updated and very slick, but I did not feel it was a worthy successor to Tron at all. It didn't feel like Tron in any way to me. Obviously, it had the light cycles and the discs and stuff, and Jeff Bridges playing Obi-Wan and all that.
Yeah.
But Tron is about taking like the modern kind of version of computers and kind of doing this like magic. Like Tron, the original Tron is basically a fantasy film in a computer. It's a Conan movie. Like it's sword and sorcery.
I can see that
basically,
perspective, yeah.
Except everybody's wearing the glowing neon, right? And Tron Legacy is more of a, I don't know what that is. It's like a trans-futurist sort of thing with like it's cool.
I may have been desperate for it. I felt like it did satisfy my itch.
I think it's one of the biggest chicken outs in the history of sequels.
Wow.
Because instead of updating the Tron concept and taking like, oh, what is the internet equal in Tron world? What is like viruses equal? Which a lot has happened in Tron 2.0 and Tron Killer, the video games. Mm-hmm. Tron 2.0 is a correct update of Tron. Mm-hmm. Like they did a lot. Like what are websites now? What are these things?
Right.
Kind of did that. Instead, they just they chicken out and they put it all on a server that's been isolated from everything for 20 years.
So they can keep it with
so they just keep it in this one locked out world and they make up whatever they want. And the one guy looks like David Bowie.
That's probably why I felt the nostalgia of it.
But I didn't, because there's nothing nostalgic about the way they did it. It's all modern and slick and like nightclubby and club. I mean, maybe I think it's more that it kind of tapped into the house scene and
it does a little bit.
The rave scene that was more, there's
which is probably why I liked it more than you.
And the Daft Punk soundtrack's great, and there's very few movies out there that are better to test your subwoofer on.
Yeah.
But as a Tron sequel, I think it's a complete failure.
Wow.
And I don't think anything starring Jared Leto is going to be any better. So it's not like
So anyway, there's no. Look.
I will say this. I mean, obviously, I'm sure they're going to do more. There is no way in hell, seeing what we've seen the box office returns of the last few years, seeing how various things can be made for what money they're made, Godzilla -1, The Creator, etc. There is no way in hell you should be spending more than $70 to $80 million on Tron 3. But they're going to spend like $150 to $200 million on it, and they're going to make like 50. And then they're going to be like, I don't know what happened. But what happened is that no one fucking cares about Tron.
Yeah, it's too old.
I love
Tron,
but
like, Godzilla come out for streaming? Do you know?
They haven't said.
Yeah, what the hell, man?
There wasn't any plans for that.
Yeah,
when
it just kind of unexpected
no one really
success.
thought it was going to. Yeah, no one thought that movie was going to make $100 million worldwide.
Yeah.
The last I heard, the negotiations were in place with Janus Films, which owns Criterion. So odds are that it would probably end up as a Criterion Collection release on disc. As far as streaming, I don't know. I mean, you could put it on the Criterion channel, which is a streaming service just for Criterion stuff, but that feels very niche.
Yeah.
If I were them, I'd be negotiating to put it on Amazon.
Everything.
Or something.
Yeah, everywhere.
I would be surprised, but it's just, I think that stuff just takes time.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone cared about the streaming rights to that movie until like early January.
Yeah.
And now it's an Oscar winner.
Right.
I think just the business deals, and Toho is a greedy ass company, so there's going to be some
negotiations.
They want some cash, so it's going to be a little while before we see that.
So anyway, we don't know anything about when the film is coming out. Kingdom Hearts, it could be coming out in 5 years. It could never come out, but they are talking about it publicly.
Mitchell says that Amazon got the deal for -1.
Oh, Amazon got the deal?
3 days from now. Okay.
In 3 days on Amazon. That's yes! Good. I still haven't watched it.
No?
No.
Oh, you should have seen it in the
theater. Can't wait. My surround sound's fucking kick-ass, man.
Yeah, but you want to see it on a screen the size of a building.
You're probably right. Yeah, it'll still be good though. I'm excited. 3 days. Yes. Thank you for that great news. So anyway, we don't really know when this is coming out, but they are talking about it publicly, and that is a step forward, as Matt just pointed out. So we'll see where it all goes. Next up.
Odds are the reason that's actually possibly happening now is Mario.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Mario kickstarted a bunch of
It's going to change the perspective on a lot of things, I think, for sure. Yep. Next up, an IP that I cannot understand, Matt, why there aren't more video games for. Game of Thrones. There is a Game of Thrones MMO RPG coming from Nexon.
Well, there's two reasons for that. First is that Game of Thrones is a very dialogue and character-driven series, so it doesn't really lend itself to like hack and slash or
there's tons of action in it, though.
But it's all motivated by what's come before.
Politics.
You basically need to make a BioWare game, and nobody's willing to put the effort behind that.
It seems insane.
And two, the final season of Game of Thrones killed that series in the zeitgeist forever.
But they should have been making them all along. Like, this is the only game that we got, this Telltale game.
But remember that series was hot in its heyday. It was hot during a period where licensed games were anathema.
Yeah.
Like, no one was making
licensed. But you know what? If you had made a good Game of Thrones, you could have turned that on its head.
But they did make 2 games, and they both kind of sucked.
Yeah. So that's what I said. If you make a good Game of Thrones game.
There was this one, and there was that action RPG one that came out that no one remembers. Remember that?
I don't remember it.
There was like a weird little action RPG game.
I thought there was only like a mobile game. And
it was an actual...
Wow. Yeah, I forgot that completely.
I can't remember. It was, Ash and the Hourglass. It's a AA game. Cyanide Studios. That's right.
What was it called?
PS3 360. I can't remember what it was called. You played like really minor lords of it was a very much a side story. The thing that last season, I've never seen anything kill
I still enjoyed the last season. It wasn't as good as the prior one.
The last, not to repeat myself on the Throne thing, the last season of Game of Thrones is one of the worst things I've ever seen.
Wow.
That the battle, the Winterfell battle, and the final episode are two of the worst things I have ever seen in terms of complete ineptitude and inability to wrap anything up properly or understand how a story should close.
Yeah.
The fact that D&D lost their Star Wars movie off of that and their Netflix contract off of that is completely appropriate. Like, in horror, if I was in charge of Star Wars or Netflix, if I watched that last season, I'd be like, get those guys, don't even let them in the fucking building again. And then they just did something that was Three Body Problem. They just did Three Body Problem for Netflix. And it's fine, but it's not remotely the book. In a way that, like, you can never forget that these are the two guys who said themes are for 8th grade book reports.
Yeah.
They do not think stories should have things to say. Mm-hmm. And that is why as soon as they ran out of Martin's books, that show got real dumb real fast.
Yeah.
And then that closing was just, what the... we don't have 3 hours for that.
They could look. They could announce, like, Bethesda could announce tomorrow, hey, we're making a Game of Thrones in our template. I would be over the moon, man. I would be hyped beyond belief for that game.
I just don't agree with that because there's nothing about Game of Thrones that would make a video game special to me. Like, Skyrim already has all the elements of Game of Thrones that would make Game of Thrones the video game interesting.
What's the characters? People love the characters from Game of Thrones.
But the characters are locked into what they do in the story. If you're not just replaying the story in the books.
I would want to do that. I would want new stories with those characters. Even
there
if
are no new stories.
Even if it's a prequel or whatever.
Well, how do you do a prequel with Arya?
There's certain characters that were young that wouldn't be in it.
Well, that's just House of Dragons.
You can make it work.
They should be focusing on House of Dragons because there's no negativity surrounding House of Dragons in the pop culture.
But House of Dragons isn't as good as Game of Thrones.
No, but it is more fertile ground for an action game.
Maybe.
But because there's more dragons.
I think there's still interest in Game of Thrones.
No. Game of Thrones is dead as a pop culture.
I think to you it's dead.
No, not to me.
Not to me. Not to my wife. Not to everybody else I know.
But
to you it is.
Not to me.
Right. And that's fair. You can say you don't like it. But I'm telling you, Matt, everybody that I know doesn't feel that way about Game of Thrones like you do.
But
they're disappointed in the final season. They still remember how awesome the rest of it was.
But it's over. It's done.
What? There's games based on dead IP all the time.
Right, but you're locked into those stories.
Again, you can find ways to do it. You can do little side stories. What happens when he just disappeared for 3 episodes?
Right, but see, here's the problem is now you're asking video game developers and writers to write as well as George R.R. Martin, and that's not going to happen.
It doesn't have to be that good. I mean, we play video games we're going to talk about games today where the writing is way worse.
Sure, but if you're cashing... But none of these video games are cashing in on the story that was told in the early part of Game of Thrones that captured the entire world, essentially, and made it the number one show of whatever. That was the number one watch show of all television at the time, right?
Yeah. I don't know about all television.
Like seasons like 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Like those are the number one thing.
I mean, there's been nothing since where everybody's talking about after every episode at work and gather around the water cooler.
I mean, I wouldn't know because nobody goes to work anymore.
That's a good point.
I mean, Fallout's close.
Yeah.
The people... The universality of everyone I know who have been talking about Fallout is the closest comparison I have is Game of Thrones in its heyday.
I agree. Yeah, again, I have text threads with people in 4 different cities. They're all talking about Fallout. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like, hey, Shane, do you know this video game Fallout? They just started talking about it amongst themselves. And then I jumped in and was like, it's blah, blah, blah about the video game.
For me, the other comparison point with Game of Thrones is similarly... Like, Fallout is something, obviously, we've known about forever. I read the first Game of Thrones book. I mean, the book, Game of Thrones. I read that in 1999.
You were way ahead.
It came out in 98. My friend gave it to me because he knew I didn't like fantasy novels very much. He's like, I think you'll like this one because it's very politically driven and very character-driven.
The first time I heard about it was like 2004 or something.
And he was right. I liked it a lot. I like those books. I wish there was going to be another one day.
Yeah. What, a book?
Yeah.
You don't think the book's going to be finished ever? I really don't think either.
I mean, someone will finish them eventually.
It won't be him.
Like Wheel of Time style.
Yeah.
But man, that dude wrote books for his whole life, finally got successful. Let him enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't really begrudge him.
If I were him, I wouldn't want to sit down and write that bullshit either.
I hear you.
For nothing.
Although he may want to try to save its legacy, to your point.
Yeah, who cares? He doesn't.
He's definitely made
live
his
your
money.
fucking life. And what's the advantage of putting that book out? All you're going to do is get yelled at by nerds for the rest of your life after that.
Pretty much.
No one, you're not going to please everyone. You're probably not going to please most people. Why do it?
What's
Why
the
put
point?
yourself through that?
No, I hear you.
Enjoy enjoy your golden years, dude. I have no grudge against George R.R. Martin for sitting back and doing whatever he wants.
I agree 1,000%. So anyway, this MMORPG is coming from Nexon. It's not coming for a while. The actors of the show are not coming back to do the game.
Well, of course not.
You will create your own character in the game, which means I think interest is going to be minimal.
Right. Well, it's not a very interesting world outside of the story that was told in that world.
It's all about those characters. Yeah, people fell in love with the
But nobody
characters.
wants to do the work of, the game you're talking about is basically Mass Effect, except it actually ends with taking every choice you made in 1 and 2 into account in 3.
Right.
And no one wants to do that because it's too fucking difficult.
And again, to your point about George R.R. Martin,
only
people are going to complain.
Only one game has accomplished that so far, and that's Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, maybe you try to talk Larian into doing that, but they've already said they want to do their own IP. And
I don't blame them either.
No, if you're going to work that hard, make it something that you
own.
100% profit from.
Yep, I agree.
That's absolutely correct.
So anyway, if you're a big Game of Thrones fan, that's something to keep an eye on here over the next year or so as we start to get more details. But as of right now, it's I was excited, and then I learned the details, and I was not as excited. So we'll see how it all plays out. Next up, we got the first details on the Assassin's Creed that I am most excited for. And what are there, 4 or 5 announced right now? 4?
I think there's just 2.
That haven't come out. So there's
Red.
There's the mobile one.
There's the mobile one. There's
Red, Hexe,
and the Hexe, and there's the Infinity Portal,
whatever the hell that is.
The portal.
Yeah.
Overarching.
So I guess 3 actually.
Basically, Ubisoft Connect, but just for Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. Well, the one I'm most excited for is Assassin's Creed Hexe, and we finally got some details about that game this week.
I'm gonna guess it's supposed to be Hexe.
Maybe.
Because Hexe just it's so hexy.
Yeah.
I don't think that's where you're going.
You're probably right. It probably is Hexe. And we finally got some details, and this comes from Tom Henderson at Insider Gaming. As always, we like to attribute people who break these stories, and Tom Henderson lately has broken every story. I don't know how. Where did he come from?
I don't know.
How did he get all these connections, man? I've been working as a journalist in this industry for 20 some years, and I don't know how he got all these connections, but he is breaking story after story, and he has the first details on Hexe. And it takes place in Central Europe in the 16th century. There's just one protagonist in this. There's not multiple protagonists to choose from. You play as a female named Elsa. They're saying right now it's scheduled to come out in 2026, which makes sense. This year we're getting Red, which is the one in feudal Japan. We're supposed to get it. We'll see if that actually works out or not. This Hexe is set during the Holy Roman Empire era. They also said it's more linear, and as you might have guessed, it's all about supernatural stuff, witches, witchcraft, all that kind of stuff, with the backdrop, obviously, of the Roman Catholic Church. I feel I wish they would have done stuff like this with Assassin's Creed a long time ago, in all honesty. Really branching out and really trying new things, instead of what they've kind of done with the last couple entries, just making them bigger and bigger and bigger. Until they almost became behemoths. I haven't finished. I finished Odyssey, barely. But I probably got halfway through Valhalla, and I was like, I've already played 40 hours, and I'm only halfway through.
I finished Valhalla.
Did you?
I did not finish the last, the Ragnarok expansion because I don't know why, but I just cannot care about the Norse mythology stuff in that
I'm not
game.
interested in it. I don't know why. It's I like the Vikings show, the TV show for some reason.
But the Viking stuff in Valhalla, but as soon as you send her to the Valhalla, or not Valhalla, wherever the gods live, where she's supposed to be Odin.
I thought it was Valhalla. Isn't that the heaven?
No, that's the afterlife.
Yeah.
But they live in
where do they actually live? You mean Asgard?
Asgard.
Yeah.
Sorry. As soon as you end up in there, I just for some reason I completely mentally check out, and because there's all the different, they call her by all the different names. Like, I don't really care about Norse mythology that much.
Yeah.
Like I know way more about how Marvel's Thor works than the real Thor. It's just not interesting to me.
Yeah.
Unlike, like, I love Egyptian mythology and Greek mythology and Japanese and all that stuff. But like, yeah, Norse mythology just feels kind of done to me. And I'm like a third Norse anyway, so genetically, so it's just like, I should be interested, but I'm sorry.
Never
I don't
clicked.
care. It's still a little too homegrown for me.
Yeah.
But like, I finished Origins twice.
Yeah.
And I finished Odyssey fully. And I very happily went back to Odyssey when they added that extra mission that connected it up to Valhalla. The Odyssey mission on that was way better than the Valhalla mission. It was just so nice to be back in the Greek Isles, frankly. It's like, oh, look, light and water and blue. And like, it's like...
Well, it's nice to go back and play that game now that I've been there.
Yeah,
After I did that big
imagine.
trip to Greece with my wife, like, I booted that up just to go and play. Because when I played it the first time, I had never been there. It gives you a new appreciation for
Well,
it.
and also just how much better a character Cassandra is.
Yeah.
Than Eivor. Not that I dislike Eivor, but it's just like Valhalla's just,
did.
Valhalla, I didn't dislike Eivor, but she's just like it's just very one note. The whole thing is a little dark, and I got real, every single location. He's like, let's go here. Now there's all these weird little local lords, and this guy thinks he's a king because but this guy's the Viking guy, and he wants to. Who should I side with? I'm gonna side. It doesn't matter who you side with. Hey, take over. Now you go back. Oh, okay. It's like this. You did it like 12 times.
Yeah.
This just never stops. And I did enjoy the raiding through the rivers thing, though. That was fun.
I like the siege stuff that you would do, where you team up and like ram through like the fortresses. Like, I thought that stuff was
There's
cool.
elements that were cool, but I mean, I finished that game and most of its DLC, just not the final Ragnar. I got like halfway through it, and it basically becomes almost like a roguelike. And I was like, I'm not doing it anymore. I don't care. So I just finished it. And I think my final time was like 220 hours. It was some obscene.
That's why I stopped. Because this games have become the definition of bloat at this point.
I really enjoy Origins and Odyssey. Odyssey, I think, is the best of the three. I don't think I will ever play it again because it still took me like 140 hours, and I don't really need to do that again.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it was time to move away from it. We'll see what happens with this. Hexe is interesting.
Retro Modern Gamer brings up a good point. It could be Hexe because of a hex.
Well, no, it's just German for witch.
Oh, Hexe is German for witch? That's where we got the word hex from, I'm guessing.
Yes.
But we pronounce it hex.
Right, because we're not calling them that a hex is a noun for the spell. Hexa is the witch, and that's why one of the early translations for The Witcher was the Hexer.
Oh, really?
A male version of the word for witch.
Interesting.
And then the more direct English translation would be The Witcher.
Yeah.
Which also makes no sense. But like,
it actually makes less
but at least it's a memorable word.
It is, yeah.
You know, like that was the Hexer doesn't make me interested because it just makes me think of Hexen.
Right.
But like when the little corner of the BioWare booth had this guy demoing this thing called The Witcher, I'm like, okay, what the fuck is a Witcher? Like, you got me. I just want to know what that word is at this point. So I think it's just the German or the Polish word for witch.
Okay.
And it does sound from what the leak was that she will have actual magic abilities, which is interesting for
She's a witch.
Assassin's
It sounds
Creed.
like she's a witch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure that will just be through.
And they're probably trying to kill her. And
I'm
burn
sure
her
that
at
will
the
just
stake.
be through the artifacts of the first ones. Every magic or fantastical thing in Assassin's Creed is always because someone found a precursor civilization.
They found a golden apple or some crap. Yeah, you're right.
I can't remember what they call the first. Is it the first ones or the first people?
The first civilization.
Yeah,
I think is what they're called. Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
They have an actual name, but I can never remember what it is.
Yeah, I don't either. So anyway, that is the latest on Hexa or Hexe, and again, it's not coming until 2026, but we should be getting more information on that. Although my guess is we're going to start getting overloaded and inundated with Assassin's Creed Red stuff real soon because again, it's supposed to come out this year, and all we have is like a 5-second teaser trailer for it so far. So
well, like I said,
start ramping up.
Like I said, I believe that Outlaws is basically in pinch hitter position. I think I think they'd like to have it out in August, but I think they're ready to slide it to October, November to be their big holiday release if they can't get that Assassin's Creed done in time.
I hear you. I agree with that.
Which I would prefer it came out in August because I want to play it, but like we know how the schedule rolls.
Yep. And then our final topic for housekeeping in episode 385, a little bit of a rewind talking about Xbox again, but this morning Microsoft and Xbox announced that it will also be doing its big showcase in June So we already talked, I think it was 2 weeks ago, about how Ubisoft announced that it's doing basically its E3 press conference, same day, same time as usual. Microsoft is doing the same exact thing. They're doing it on, I think it's June 9th, and it's in the morning at like 10 a.m. like it always is. It's like, why? You're not competing with a bunch of other press conferences now. Mm-hmm. Like, do it at like 1 p.m. Pacific. Like, I don't know why they're so stuck on that time, but they're basically doing their E3 press conference like it always does.
Is that a good time in like Europe or something?
Maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know. It used to be. It kind of had to do it because the way there were all those press conferences stacked in 2 days.
Yeah. Well, I guess because it's like we're -8 GMT, so yeah, so it's like 6 p.m. British time.
They've probably done the math.
You do it any later, it's like middle of the night in Europe. And
yeah, they probably figured out that's the time where you can do it and reach the most eyeballs. Yeah. But for us on the West Coast, it kind of sucks. But anyway, it is doing its usual E3 press conference in early June, along with Ubisoft. And so far, it's already shared some of the games that are going to be there. And some of the release dates for these games also leaked out today. So as of right now, it appears that, one, they're going to do their press conference, and then like right after, they're going to unveil the next Call of Duty, which everybody right now believes, and rightfully so, that it's going to be Treyarch's next Black Ops game that's supposed to take place during the Cold War. That's what they're saying. So that would be like Black Ops 5 at this point. And that's going to have its own presentation the day after the press conference. But also these release dates have leaked out for some of this stuff. So they're saying that Call of Duty, the next Black Ops 5, is coming in October. And then they said that Avowed and Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 will be coming in November. And then that the Indiana Jones and the Great Circle will release in December, which makes me really nervous that it probably won't make it. Luckily, neither one of us drafted it in our fantasy league.
I honestly forgot that was supposed to come out this year.
Yeah, still, my guess is it doesn't. In December, that's really dicey. We'll see if it actually makes it out or not. But that's the loose schedule for kind of the rest of the year for most of Xbox exclusive. Now, don't forget, Hellblade 2 comes out in just like a couple weeks here. But then after that, I mean, that seems like not a lot of games to fill out the rest of the year. And one of them I'm not 100% convinced is going to make it before the end of the year anyway. But that's kind of the roadmap for Xbox releases for 2024. Could there be a surprise here or there? Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be.
But more likely it would be like a surprise for next year.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we talked earlier.
Definitely not State of Decay 3.
Yeah. Well, we talked earlier about how Microsoft is struggling a little bit here, or a lot of bit here.
That was the company that was founded by the Kingdom Come Deliverance guy.
Which one?
Wasn't it? No, that was a different guy. That was the guy who laid everybody off 2 weeks ago. The guy who fired everybody from Possibility Space.
Oh,
that was he created Undead Labs.
Oh,
before that.
Oh, the dude that screwed over Sound Wizardry. Yeah. That sucks. Still, that bothers me. So, that doesn't look like a great year of releases unless Indiana Jones ends up becoming something really, really special. I don't know. It doesn't feel like there's anything in the docket for 2024 that will change Xbox's fortunes.
No, I mean, the only thing left to really unveil is like a new Gears game or something, or Forza Horizon 6, which I'm surprised doesn't seem to be this year. Maybe they're just all hands on Fable Deck over there. But
there's so many games that we're just like, what the hell's going on? Also, they're saying that the new Gears will be unveiled at E3 as well. Gear 6. So I think we guessed that. I don't think it'll be coming out this year. It could be that game that makes it out this year though. They're kind of overdue to release a new Gears. So.
Yeah, but I don't know.
But that doesn't move the needle either anymore.
No.
So the good news is we're getting games. Because last year we really didn't. So that is an improvement over last year in a lot of ways. But Microsoft needs to do more still.
I would think I would most like to know what's up with Forza Horizon, because this would be the first time they've missed
the every other year. And I'm actually surprised that neither one of us drafted it, because usually one of us does.
Yeah, well, I don't trust any of those people.
I don't trust it anymore either, and I think that's why neither one of us did. Yeah, I don't trust it either. I'm just like, nope. Like, I don't trust what you're gonna do, or you say you're gonna do. So. As of right now, that's the roadmap for Xbox, and those are going to be the big exclusives that appear on Game Pass for the rest of the year as well. I don't see any of them moving the needle other than Call of Duty, obviously, but that's shared with PlayStation now. So Microsoft will make a ton of money selling Call of Duty on PlayStation, but it's not going to convince people to buy an Xbox. So that is just the biggest shame of it all, is that Microsoft owns the biggest IP in all of gaming, and it cannot leverage it. That is just...
Well, as long as they make money from it, I don't think...
Yeah, but I mean, leveraging it to make their own platform a success, they can't. It's just crazy.
The thing you got to remember there is that everything's... All that's still lumped together into the Xbox department.
Yeah.
Like the money you made from PlayStation still makes the money. It looks the same on the balance sheet.
No, it does. Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, I guess really more good news here is that in early June, we're getting a legit like E3 type thing. We're going to get a ton of press conferences. We're going to get Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest. All that stuff is going to keep rolling as if E3 never disappeared. And I'm totally cool with it. It makes the loss of E3 a lot more palatable, knowing that pretty much everything is still going to happen except for the show floor.
Yeah, it's still the right time to show things and kind of lay out your second half of the year plans, no matter whether there's a expo or not.
Yeah. Yep. So overall, I would say that's kind of encouraging news from Xbox. Like the fact
it takes a lot less to put together a presentation like that on streaming than to like work up a demo people can put their actual hands on.
Yeah, it's totally true. Talica 1981, thank you for Twitch Prime. Erebus Jones says they don't want to overdo it. Brilliant as they are, 3, 4, and 5 are pretty similar. I guess he's talking about Gears.
Forza, I think.
Oh, Forza. I mean, they've done it every other year, always. But I would argue maybe they're starting to hit the law of diminishing returns, because it's been like one of those games and franchises that like a lot of it is built on its tech and how gorgeous it is. And they're kind of getting to the point where it's like making that game look better is not as easy as it used to be. So maybe they're going to start taking a little more time with it, but we haven't heard anything about it so far. So would we normally by now? I don't remember.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah, we would know it was coming by now.
I think so.
I mean, we are in May almost. So maybe that's another surprise we'll get at its not E3 press conference.
I mean, technically that September slot is still open for something, Gears or something else.
Yeah. And is that where Forza Horizon?
Usually September, yeah. Usually the very beginning of fall kind of long. It's almost, sometimes it's the end of August, like if I recall correctly, like it's the first big holiday game.
I think you're right, yeah. So anyway, fingers crossed, because we all love Forza Horizon. You probably do, or you should. If you don't, you probably haven't played it. But to me, it's the best arcade-style racing game on the market. So anytime they give me a new one, I'm ready to play it, and I'm going to play it. Vincent says September is a Starfield expansion. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
That was just announced as well.
Shattered Stars. Or
yeah.
Whatever, yeah.
It's story-based DLC.
Yeah, it seems to be focusing on the that weird faction that one companion girl's from. The culty Klingon people.
Probably the right call.
Valrune or
I don't remember the name of it.
I don't know.
I know what you're talking about, though.
I was talking to some of my friends about Starfield and like this about like whether and they're like, I thought you liked that. I'm like, I do like it. I played 140 hours of it, but the first 2 weeks. But then since then I played it like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it's hard to
you're
get
the
back
guy
into.
who goes back for really great games. Yeah.
And like I tried to explain it to them as like, as people who don't watch this show, and I was like, it's basically 3 things. I don't like any of the characters. And I don't want to spend time with any of them. And that was also kind of true of Skyrim and Fallout, but Skyrim and Fallout had exploration and discovery that made that not matter. However, number 2, there's nothing to really discover in Starfield because everything you discover is the same. The minings are all exactly the same down to the placement of the corpses. And like the only real discovery is flying from planet to planet, discovering the different planets and solar systems. And that would matter more if 3, the space stuff is incidental because there's actually nothing to do in space and there's no transitional like meat or connective tissue between flying to space and flying down. So like there's no real difference between fast traveling to a planet and flying to a planet because it's all load screens anyway.
I mean, the whole space thing was just kind of rendered
it's a completely meaningless thing, which is like not probably what you want to do. So basically, it's like, yes, you basically made Fallout 4 Skyrim in space, but you also sort of extracted the parts that kept me playing those games, that made me play Skyrim 4 times. Because I'll tell you this much, maybe all the caves in Skyrim are not the most brilliant level design of all time, but none of them are. There's not 40 that are all the same.
It's true.
I'll tell you that much.
Yeah,
there's always something else to see over the hill, and that just doesn't exist in Starfield.
Yep.
And that's the thing think they need to. I know there's another patch coming that's got surprises in it, but I'm like, I'll read about it before I
don't think the surprise will be that big.
Probably not. I mean, hey, look, man, I just don't understand how you ship that game without at least, like, I don't know, 3 versions of the mine that randomly pop.
Yeah.
You know, like 2... You know, at least move the dead guy on the stairs once in a while. Like, come on.
That's hilarious. All right, well, there you go. That's our housekeeping for GameFace episode 385. We're about to deliver our review of Stellar Blade here on GameFace. But before that, here's a word from our awesome sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles. It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Cray Mass, and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit International Competition. LS Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis. To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's creamls.com/sifted. That's right, people. Go to creamls.com/sifted and get yourself a bottle of LS Cream. In fact, let's David, I have not got that new shipment of LS Cream. You're going to make me go out and buy it. And then I can go to creamls.com/sifted and find stores local to me where I can buy it, or I can just order it online and get it delivered right to my place. Again, LS Cream mixes so well with so many different liquors and so many different mixers, and that's why you need to go to the website so you can get all the awesome drink recipes so you can learn how to make those crazy drinks that you saw in the ad. And I'll say this too, those drinks are not as hard to make as you think. So you have a special night plan, maybe you're making dinner for the significant other, you want to spice it up, you want to deliver an awesome drink to match the dinner that you're making, get yourself some LS Cream and mix up some awesome drinks. Go to creamls.com/sifted. Again, it has all the information that you need there to make awesome drinks and to get yourself your own bottle of LS Cream. And with that, it's time to get on with the show proper. And the first game we're going to review in today's Game Face is Stellar Blade, a PlayStation 5 exclusive. I feel like most of the chatter around the game so far has been about the clothing and the crazy proportioned lead protagonist. I feel like we've discussed that ad nauseum, and now it's time to talk about the actual game. And I think the first thing I will say is that the game itself is way better than I thought it was going to be. Would you agree?
Yes, considering that when I first saw this, I thought it looked like complete trash.
Like, I thought it was going to be like a 2 or 3 out of 10 or something like that when I first saw it. It is definitely not that.
No, it is a solid 6-ish.
It's a competent action game.
Yeah, but it's like, it's weird because, like, in the run-up and the marketing and some of the discussion before the demo came out and it just became about showing pictures of her ass going up the ladders.
Yeah.
It was like, people seem to be trying to kind of imply it was like a Devil May Cry sort of thing. It's not.
No.
It's Darksiders.
I think the combat's a little more involved than Darksiders. I
don't think it is.
Really?
Darksiders 2 is what I continually think of when I'm playing this game. Darksiders 2's combat is just enough that you're like, okay, there's some options here and some stuff I can do, but also I'm mostly just using the bread and butter to get through stuff and the special moves when I get in trouble.
Well, I'll just say it right now. I mean, I found a way to cheese my way through this whole game. Just using the assassinations, the ambush attacks.
Oh, the ambush is very strong.
It takes out every enemy but bosses with one attack, and you just sneak up behind every enemy in the game.
As long as you're upgrading your weapon regularly.
Once I realized that it was one hit, one kill, I just went to that skill tree and just buffed it all up. I buffed that up.
Not that, the weapon upgrades.
Oh.
That's when you buy the weapon, get the weapon module core and do it in the repair thing. Like that. That's what ups your attack strength.
Well,
and as long as you're doing that, you should be able to ambush kill anything that isn't a boss or a mini boss.
Oh, and I just went to the tree. I maxed out the ambush kills, and then I maxed out all of the beta stuff. So the beta regen.
Regen's good. I'll be honest. There was a point in this game when I was running around with 35 unspent skill points.
Yeah.
Because none of it matters.
Because you don't. If you pick those trees, the rest of it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, none of it, because I don't use the perfect dodge too much, except with the yellow attacks, and even then, it's better to just get out of the way and not try to perfect dodge. There's no reason to risk that. It's like, it's funny. It's real easy for the most part.
I walked through this game.
Also, because problems. Like it does use the Dark Souls like camp at the thing, get your stuff back. You have Estus flask equivalents to drink when you get hurt. And it respawns the enemies, but there is no penalty for dying, as far as I know.
I mean, you just go back to the last camp.
And the checkpoints are actually very generous, and like if you die during a boss, it'll actually start you, if there's no camp right before the boss, it'll just start you right before the boss.
Right at the boss, fight. Yeah.
So, you're free to try over and over again if you want. The only difficulty I've run into is this game is janky as all hell in places. There's hitbox problems. It's very mushy in terms of how like the combo system works. When it does work, you can have your attacks interrupted almost at random at times, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense what stuns and doesn't stun the enemies. Your parry is the most powerful thing in the fucking game, because blocking takes life off, but parrying doesn't. So basically, you just want to parry everything.
Yeah.
Which actually is possible with the bosses more than the regular enemies for some reason, because the regular enemies will sometimes change up their timing. The bosses never do.
Well, if you parry, also, that's what staggers the enemies. Like, if you do it enough times in a row, it's almost like they lose interest.
Well, that's what they have little dots under their health bar, and that's what if you run out of dots, you can do your what you call your I think it's called revenge or retaliate or something against them, and like it takes up a ton of, like, that's basically how you beat bosses, is if you parry, perfect parry enough, and you get to do that, and you take off probably usually about a fourth of their health, and that'll get you ahead enough to do it.
I found the first boss that was at the end of the demo more difficult than almost any other boss in the game. Every other boss I beat on the first try. That boss in the demo, I had to fight him several times before I ever beat him.
I think I fought him. I beat him the first try.
Oh, you did?
Except in the demo, I didn't realize there was going to be a quick time event that popped up. For the L1 pops up, and I missed it.
And they do that a lot in this game.
And then he gets like a bunch of his health back, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck you. And I just turned it off. I'm like, I'll do that later.
Yeah.
And then when I played him, that was the first thing I had to do when I loaded up the save on the full game. And yeah, I just beat him. Yeah. I think I got killed by a couple of the bosses where like I wasn't quite ready for like how strong their one attack was, but as soon as you learn the timing, there's very few things that can touch. I got killed by those guys with the staffs more often than I got killed by any bosses, because they're very hard to sneak up on, because they've always got those little guys with them that can't be snuck up on.
Yeah, you can ambush kill those robots with the turrets, but these guys you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pretty much just walked through this game. I didn't really find a lot of resistance in it at all. One of the things that confused me, and maybe you've kind of figured it out, I can't really figure out how the respawning of enemies works, because you're right, if you save or you rest at one of the rest points, they respawn. But the other crappy part about it is that sometimes, like, if you just watch a cutscene, it'll respawn all the enemies.
I've never seen that.
Oh, yeah. Like, there are some cutscenes where if you do the cutscene, it'll respawn all the enemies in the area. So it became a little hard for me to figure out, but then again, the game isn't that difficult, so it wasn't like it was all that frustrating anyway.
I've only had them respawn when I rested things.
Yeah.
I mean, new ones can pop out if you have
to be fair, this happened out in the open world areas of the game, like the Wasteland and places like that. Like, for example, I went through the Wasteland.
Well, they can always pop more stuff out from the ground, I've learned.
Yeah.
Like that happens a lot.
Like, I went through the Wasteland and killed everything. I literally just went through the whole open area, killed everything, then a cutscene happened, and everything respawned, and I was like, that was like the dumbest thing I've ever done, going and killing all those enemies. It helped, obviously, level up.
You still got the XP.
Yeah. But then you don't need, to your point, you don't really even need, like, the skill points in the end.
And the skill, the two locked skill trees open way late in the game.
Yeah.
Like, and they're not very exciting. I guess the one is, but then the second one is like kind of your ultra mode, and like that is one of the dumbest thing. Like, that's useless. It doesn't do any more damage than I do normally.
I know.
Like, it's very weird.
The most of the skill tree stuff, like as far as like the skill trees that you use in the game, it's really hard to tell what it does out in the field. Like, very rarely did I go in the skill tree, buy new skills, and then go out and fight, and immediately it's like, oh,
yeah,
I see what that did.
It's very incremental. And like even the ones that are like, this is the best. That's, because the main one I was looking at for that was the beta recharge stuff. Because you want the beta energy so you can use your special moves, because the special moves are really the best way to short circuit the unblockable attacks that the enemies have. Rather than relying on the incredibly unreliable dodge system. And especially the ones where like there's a lag, there's an input lag on almost everything in this game, and
they said it was on purpose,
which is stupid.
They said they put it in there on purpose.
That's crazy, and it's really bad on the when there's two different like kind of automated dodge things where like if the enemy's attack is blue, like a blue circle appears, and then a flash appears on your sword. And when the flash appears on your sword, you push up and dodge, and you'll jump behind them and stab them in the back. If it's purple, when the flash appears on your sword, you put down in that, and you basically jump back and like jump kick them and push them away, and it makes them vulnerable to your ranged attack.
Right.
The thing, like, it took me forever to get the purple one to work properly, because you have to actually do the move after the flash happens on your sword. Like, it's a split. Like, as soon as the flash appears on the sword, my fighting game instincts are like, now. But it's actually like 10 frames after that.
I found that with everything in this. I found with blocking, parrying, I always felt like I needed to wait a beat longer to do it.
Yeah, mushy is the only word I have for
I almost
it.
felt like I needed to be lazy playing this to time stuff right.
If I got too kind of sharp on it, I'd start to outrun the game.
Yeah.
And it was very frustrating.
Yeah, I felt that way too.
There's also times
But again, the game is so easy that like it doesn't really matter in the end.
There's a couple times when I would get stuck in the, like, you fight things in fairly narrow areas, and like sometimes like, it just locks in, you can't. A couple times I died, and I'm like, okay, I give up. The camera's not showing me what happened. Just kill me, and I'll try it again.
Yeah.
Like, it's just.
I was surprised how many systems there were in the game. Like,
there are. It's just a lot of them don't matter.
Yeah. Like, you can, like, your exosuit, you can, get new exosuits, and they have specialties, and then you can level those up and give them special buffs. Like, there's systems on systems in here, way more than I thought that there was going to be when I played the demo. Like, I really thought it was just going to be straight up. And look, this isn't an action RPG. It doesn't go that far. No. But it does bump up against it a little bit.
You do enough fetch quests that it does a pretty, there's a fishing mini game. It's there's
most of the quests in this, like the like side quests, almost all of them are fetch quests. Mm-hmm. Hey, go get this thing here. And sometimes it's like on the other side of the freaking planet.
Here's the thing. A whole bunch of this game is archaic in design. Like, there's a bunch of stuff where when it would happen, I'd be like, what year is it?
Yeah. It feels like a game from, like, the early
And
aughts.
for all the people, like, all the weirdo core dipshit gamers, but championing this as some sort of, like, triumph of, like, like... It has ancient quest design. Yeah. There's yellow paint on everything you can climb up, which everyone was whining about.
Most games do that.
Yeah, because you got to show someone where you can go.
Yeah.
And like, there's the yellow paint's right in this. We're not complaining about that all of a sudden.
Right. Yeah. It is the highest user reviewed game on Metacritic. That tells you everything
bullshit.
You need to know.
Also, if you bother to read the backstory, it's all global warming that killed humans off.
Well, it's all about environmental stuff. Yeah, it's all eco-driven.
Why isn't that a problem all of a sudden?
Let's talk about the plot in this. Now, we've talked about this game one other time after we played the demo. Is the plot
your nickname for her ass? Because that seems to be the main plot. Yeah.
It starts to get like convoluted. You get a lot of like exposition dumps where they just like tell you the whole story in like one cutscene in like 45 seconds.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that like the real backstory of the world is told in some of the text logs.
Yeah.
That like people are probably not even going to read.
Yeah.
Which I guess is sort of spoilers, but like I promise it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it essentially the backstory of the world is as predictable as you could possibly imagine.
Yeah. You show up as this group trying to save humanity, basically, but then you get there and it's like way more complicated.
There's like these space, because a bunch of survivors of humanity live on what they call the colony in space, and they're apparently just all hot women, I guess. And periodically these airborne squads like helldiver down and like try to do something, like fight monsters or find the alpha Natiba, which is like the monsters are called Natibas. and you're supposed to find the alpha one. If you kill the alpha one, you can track down the elder one, and the elder one, if you kill that one, they'll stop coming or something like that.
That's really the plot of the game. That's what keeps you going.
And her whole squad gets wiped out, and she's the last survivor, and this guy, Adam, saves her, and he's the dude in the spacesuit who flies the little pod thing, and he's also
controls the drone.
He controls the drone and talks you through the drone, and you eventually find this girl in another one of your downed escape pods who's like an engineer from the airborne, and she helps you with your tech stuff, and you're like a 3-person team, and that becomes a thing, and you're sort of going around. Your home base becomes this town Zion. Which there's so much Matrix plagiarism in this.
In the B-roll earlier, you saw her running into Zion there.
Yeah. Zion with an X.
Yeah.
And then later you go to places called Matrix.
Yeah.
Matrix 11. I'm just like, I know these are just words, but it's like, guys, you could try.
Come on.
At one point, I think Adam actually says Zion, the last human city. I'm like, I know, I've seen that movie.
Yeah.
And so Zion is like kind of a place you run around, and like there's the leadership is there's something weird going on. It's like it's one of those things where I don't think I trust any of you fuckers. And like you can tell who the main characters are because they have like actual costume designs. Much like Eiyuden Chronicles, which we'll get to later. And you can solve like weird rudimentary like quests for people, and there's a bulletin board where you can do like go get a thing and
they're all fetch quests. All fetch quests
or kill this many foozles, and it's extremely vanilla.
Yeah. I mean, it's very derivative. This game is like action game from 2008. Yeah. In a nutshell, pretty much.
Yeah,
with better visuals.
Really, the place it excels, I would say, is the visuals. I think it does look very good for the most part. There are weird moments where like. One time I was running through one of the... I think it is a little samey. Like, it's too bad that the very beginning of the game is running through basically, like, broke-down parking garages. Yeah. Because it's some of the most boring visuals in the game. And then, like, later on you get to big wastelands, big brown things, big
eventually
deserts.
It's almost a pseudo-open world game.
Yeah, there's 2 pseudo-open, like, big open area locations. The problem I had with that is that in between those you go to smaller locations...
We have no vehicles. There's no way to get around the open world.
Well, I don't care about the vehicles because he runs pretty fast.
Yeah.
And the fast travel is pretty generous. The problem is places like the place you start and the Matrix place, you do have to go back to them for some side quests periodically and things like that in order to find things you miss because there are upgrades you need, like hit point and beta energy upgrades if you miss them. There are no maps for those places.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Some of these, remembering where things were and all these like same.
I mean, there's a map for the wasteland though.
Right, there are maps for the 2 big open areas, but there's no maps for the other places.
Yeah.
And like the other places are the places that are hard to navigate because they're all hallways that all look the same. And I'm like, where was the teddy bear in the swing?
Yeah.
Where was that? I can't. Like, there's just a list of fast travel points, and I'm like, I don't remember what that was.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even name the fast travel points off the most prominent landmarks in the areas. Like, it's very weird. The other thing I would say is some of those areas you'll find like a door texture that just looks like it came out of a PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
Random. It's so weird. Like everything else is crystal clear, and there was this one door where the warning label was just blur. And I'm like, what happened there? Like,
yeah. I think overall though the game looks and runs pretty well.
It runs very well.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty well optimized. I don't really have any. I think I was playing it on performance. If there's a performance mode, I usually put it to that. No, it runs very well. It runs very smooth. No, even in the heat of like tons of shit blowing up in the open world areas, I didn't notice any hitches really. It's fine. The other thing is the music. Like the music's fine. Like I don't have a problem with the music, but oh my god, it just the same vocal songs over and over and over and over. Like the Wasteland has the same vocal song. There's no battle music even when fights start. It's just the same kind of Enya song, and then you meet the robo singer who's apparently supposed to be singing all these songs, and her name is Enya. Like,
it's right on the nose.
When I went to bed the first day I played this, I had the vague melody of that song in my head all night. Like all my dreams were that stupid fucking like the whole time. And I'm like, then I got to the Matrix part, and there was no vocals in that area. I'm like, oh my god, this is beautiful. This is wonderful. Like the songs are good, the music's good, but it's just.
They don't have enough.
They just lay a bed of the same song under the same section of game you're going to be playing for like the next 40 minutes or more, and it's just like no. Except when you go to the save point, you get to listen to one of 4 different versions of something that vaguely sounds like the girl from Ipanema.
Yep. One thing I think my biggest complaint with the gameplay is the platforming and the traversal are
the
abysmal.
platforming is what the hell are you doing?
But
making me jump around?
They know it's bad because there isn't that much of it.
No.
Like there are these very specific, discrete sections of the game where they're like, okay, now you're gonna platform.
Yeah, now you're gonna do this.
You're gonna hate it for the next 10 minutes, but then it will disappear for 3
hours. We're gonna make her stick to things in certain places just because we never figured that out fully.
Yeah.
That's good. The other thing I would say is I would bet money that much of this game's English translation was done by AI.
I would not be surprised.
Because the voices are all people. They're all real voice actors, but some of the dialogue in this game does not make any fucking sense.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can see, like, I'm trying to remember what the big example I had was. There's a thing where it's like, she says something like, a word that doesn't make any sense in that, but it's like, if you could come up with a vague synonym. Oh, it was like, where she was like, it was a thing you find where it turns out some guy it wasn't an accident, he was murdered. And you go back to the person that sent you on the thing who clearly is the person who killed him, and she says something like, I was like, the thing,
I skipped so much dialogue in this.
She says something like,
this game is so wordy.
She says something like, what I found doesn't match the action, and I'm like, okay, that's the sentence clear. Like that's clearly a literal translation of probably the original Korean that like in English you translate it as, the events don't match the story you told me.
Yeah. Or you're lying.
Yeah, but it's like, but you can see like the words there would become that if you were, a human being was thinking through the translation. Yeah. But that happens constantly in the game. And like periodically people will say something back and forth through, especially the side quest stuff, and I'm like, what? I'm like, I shouldn't have to retranslate this again in my mind to try to figure out what your intention was there. Yeah. It screams AI to me.
Yeah. What did you think about the gunplay?
I try not to do it.
I hardly do it either, and the game doesn't push it on you. There's actually like a huge like level where you have to shoot the whole way through it.
Right, where they take away your sword.
Yeah, and they keep giving you like replenishment for ammo. But once you're outside of there, like the only place you ever get ammo is if you buy it. Like I hardly ever found it to pick up.
You pick it up if you smash crates.
Yeah, but not very often.
If you use it regularly, you're going to run low pretty quick.
I found myself running out of bullets.
It's not very strong, so there's no real reason. The only time
you have to like find the weak spot of the enemies.
Well, usually the weak spot only pops out when you do the purple counter.
Yep.
In the level where you're forced to use the gun the whole time, all the enemies have weak spots.
You can see them without doing.
They all have explosive canisters on them, or they like glow. It's very easy to get through that. So there was that footage of that where you're in the laser grid. That was that level.
Yeah, and then eventually it turns into like Resident Evil 4, where like you take an enemy down, but they're the host for some other symbiotic organism. So you kill them, but they're not actually dead. This like wormy thing comes out of them. Like it's very derivative. Like it feels like every idea in this game was taken from some other game.
Yep.
I really struggle to find anything unique or creative about it.
The fact that her sword is also her hair
hairpin
is pretty good. Like that's I don't think I've ever seen that before. How
sword this long turns into a hairpin that just fits into her hair?
Nanomachines, son.
Apparently, nanomachines. So there's goofy stuff like that in it, but I guess overall what I would say is like it's competent. It's a competent action game. Like it just kept leading me by the hand. I don't understand
the people giving it 8s.
No, that's insane. Like it's a 7 to me.
It's a 6 or a 7 to me.
It's an average game.
It's fine.
I talked about the game a little bit in the grind, and I called it a filler game. Like it's one of those games that like every platform needs. Exclusives that aren't like top shelf AAA, but you need them like filling in the holes between those games.
It's a Days Gone.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's better than Days Gone, I would say.
I
like it.
I don't know which one I enjoyed more. That's a good question, actually.
I mean, this thing's wonky and bonkers, but like I didn't want anyone in this to die like I did Boozer. Like
that's a good point.
Like at no point did I want an option for letting Boozer,
Yeah.
No.
When I think about my time with Days Gone,
this is very vanilla and forgettable, but like Days Gone actually annoyed me.
Yeah. When I think about my time with Days Gone, like a lot of it was like dread. Like, oh, now I gotta go there.
Now I gotta drive the fucking bike that gets 4 feet to the gallon through like 14,000 zombies. And
or now I have to go through this crazy horde to get to the mission. You're right. Now that I think about it, a lot of playing that game was me like, no, I don't want to do that.
I have to engage with the game systems again. Like that. I mean, that's a problem.
I guess I did enjoy Stellar Blade more. Because Stellar Blade allowed me to just be completely mindless and just keep plowing through the game, hacking and slashing. There weren't really any difficulty spikes where I got to points where I was like, oh, this is like...
Oh, yeah.
I had to fight a boss like 30 times or anything like that.
Silk Snake asks, is it better than Nier? Not in its wildest dreams.
No.
This game wants to be Nier so desperately... Like
but it wants to be
not
everything.
Even close.
That's the thing, Matt. This game tries to be every other popular game.
But the thing it's most trying to be is Nier Automata.
Yeah.
And it's not even remotely in the same league.
I mean, presentation-wise, I think it's vastly superior to Nier, but Nier's an older game.
Yeah, Nier Automata's last gen. But
it feels like empty, the world in Nier a lot.
But even if you're just going to compare like needlessly hot protagonists... Yorba is way more memorable.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Not Yorba. Is that her name?
B.
Well, Yorba's the other girl in
that. Yeah. I agree with that.
2B, yeah.
And also the tone of Nier, way more memorable. There's a feeling in Nier that sticks with you after you play it. This game, other than the music making you sing it with you went to sleep, this game did not stick with me at all.
Well, and also
when I stopped playing it, I didn't find my mind drifting back to it.
Well, Nier's trying to do the interesting kind of non-linear like revelation storyline with like people that aren't quite sure whether they're human or not and what humanity means. But it is actually doing it with a thought in it. It said Yoko Taro may have said that this game's better than Nier, but Yoko Taro is lying because he says that about everything. He's like needlessly over humble about everything.
Yeah.
Yoko Taro has more thoughts in his head on the toilet than this game has through its whole fucking runtime.
Yeah.
So no, it is not as good as Nier or Nier Automata. Play those games instead, 100%.
Yeah, the tone of those games have
Nier
a specific
Automata also
feeling
has a way better combat system.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah, I think Nier's better in pretty much every way, but presentation. This game definitely looks and runs a lot better than Nier did. And then, again, I was surprised at how many of the systems there are. Like, there isn't a ton of stuff to collect. There's, like, these soda cans that you find.
Yeah.
And eventually you get the machine that they get collected in. And then they actually, like, unlock, like, legitimate gameplay stuff.
Yeah, they unlock, like, more inventory for your consumables, which I almost never use anyway. And then the final unlock is, like, a black negligee.
Yeah. And they tease you with it.
Oh, they put a picture of it next to the vending machine so you know what you're working towards.
You maybe saw it in the B-roll. I showed it. Like... literally, it is like the like dirtiest outfit in the whole game, and they put it there as like a carrot.
Oh, it's not as dirty as the skin outfit,
I guess. But they put it there as like this goal that you're trying to attain the whole time you play through the game. Now, I will say this also, as I played through the game, like the whole like nudity stuff, like the scantily clad, I felt like it wasn't as egregious as the game went on as it is at the beginning. I feel like they're heavy-handed with that stuff at the beginning to kind of hook you in, and then it kind of dissipates.
I mean, she wears a lot of stuff that you wouldn't wear. She wears heels to fight monsters.
I mean, it's
the whole
absurd,
time.
yeah.
And some of the outfits don't even have actual heels. She's just standing on her tiptoes like Barbie in that scene
a ballerina.
in the movie. Yeah. And it's like, okay, that's not a very comfortable way to be, but I guess you're kind of an android, so it could be. Yeah. It's just silly. And like there's just things where like, where you're doing the marvelously innovative top tier gaming, grabbing a giant dumpster and pushing it so you can hop on it to get one level higher, and she's like pushing the thing, making like noises, and her ass is just sort of like slow-mo water balloon animating the whole time. It's like, who fucking thinks this is hot? Like,
well, it's like when she goes up the ladder.
That's not what people look like.
When she goes up the ladder, the camera always dips down, so you're like looking up her skirt.
Well, you have more camera freedom on the ladders in this game than almost any other time in it.
Yeah.
Like, they know what you're looking at when you're doing that.
It's
But they still don't. It's very silly.
I made the mistake of going to a Twitter thread about this game. Oh my god. I don't know if I've ever been more embarrassed to be a gamer in my entire life than reading that thread. It was just sad. It's just there are so many lonely, sad people out there. Mm-hmm. It made me upset a little bit seeing it. Like, they're crazy and they're angry, and they're the people that went to Metacritic and, started these big, hashtags to get people to go to Metacritic and give it a 10. I get all that, but at the root of it all, they are just very lonely, sad people. Yeah. And it's just...
who don't seem to understand that people aren't porn.
It really kind of hurt my heart. Like, part of it I do understand. Like, if you're like an 11-year-old kid You can't.
They aren't. They're our age.
I know a lot of them aren't. But look, there is a perspective on this, though. If you are 11 or 12 or whatever, and your parents are, they put your phone, they lock it down so you can't go to porn sites, and your computer is like lock you out of it. For the people like that, this is as close as they're going to get.
Right, but none of those people are doing this.
No, I'm not saying that.
The ringleader on this is a 56-year-old idiot.
No, I understand that. I totally get that. And those are the people that make me sad. But
they don't make me sad. They make me wish they'd go away forever.
Yeah, but there is a market
Get out of
for
the
this
hobby.
game that isn't the 40 and 50-year-old lonely incel. It's the tween kid who can't watch porn yet, and this is the closest that they're going to get to it. That perspective, I understand a little bit more.
I still wouldn't want that kid to play this game because it's not a healthy way to look at
No,
people.
I completely agree. But I'm just saying there is a market for the game that isn't as dastardly
But
as
even
like
that kid
the
can
middle-aged lonely guy.
Yeah, but like, fuck them.
Yeah.
Fuck everyone who wants a game to be a porn game for them. Like, you don't need that.
Some people, that's all they can get.
Hell, go to the eShop and buy hentai golf or whatever the fuck the latest thing porn you can get on the Switch. I don't even know what we're doing.
Those characters
anymore.
are made of 20 polygons, though.
Right. They don't animate properly.
Seriously.
Well, then I enjoyed that there was a period where they had to find something else to get mad about because all the reviews were pretty positive. Mm-hmm. So there was one guy who gave it an 8 that was getting death threats. I know that. And then,
wait until they watch our review of it.
Well, then they decided that censorship had happened because some of the outfits got
that's
changed.
what the thread was that I stumbled upon on Twitter.
But
the hashtag was Free Stellar Blade. And then you go there, and these people are psychos, Matt.
Yeah.
These people have gone and watched trailers or played the game and grabbed these screenshots in like the exact moment to show that there's like one more drop of blood in the trailer than there is in the final game.
Did you see what happened?
Or the cut of the outfit is just like a millimeter more cut in the trailer.
Well, that was pre-release stuff. That was changed already in the demo. They didn't find time to complain about it in the demo.
I sat there and I thought about some kid.
Also, the gore
let me
thing.
Finish, please.
But the gore thing is because the footage that we're looking at was from performance mode, which lowers the gore to keep the performance high. That amount of blood is still in the game if you switch it to quality.
Right. Yeah. But it's
all nothing.
But I just sat there and I thought about the person on this Twitter account who took the time to watch all this stuff and sit there trying to snap that. Let me finish. To snap the screenshot at the exact moment and then go into Photoshop and then go in there and draw the circle around the thing and then create this collage of 10 different images just like... It's insane!
But here's the thing.
This person could do so many things with their time instead of this.
Here's the thing. They didn't do that. They got it from Reddit, which got it from the YouTube grifter.
Right, but somebody had to do it.
Right, but the grifters do that. The people that make money off these people do that.
And sad.
Well, yeah, but the people who made that, they made money from this.
Because they put it in their Twitter feed, and they're getting ads from Elmo.
The person that you saw retweet, they didn't spend that time. They've been informed that this is what they should be mad about.
See, this is another thing about the changes that Elmo made to Twitter that has made it worse.
It's completely
rewarding
useless.
people for this behavior.
Oh, yeah.
It's like some of these people may not even want to do this. They probably do. But maybe they don't. But it's the money sitting there. It's like if you get all these incels all riled up about it, they'll come into your Twitter feed, and then you're serving ads in your Twitter feed off of these people. It's just...
Well, and the ads...
The whole thing is so sad.
If you look at those threads, those ads are very targeted to those people.
Yeah.
Like, they're very on point. It's not like you're not getting, like, car ads. I mean, you're not getting car ads in Twitter anyway, because no car company would ever want to be associated with the people that are being put up next to those ads. But, like... It's fascinating when you go into like those spaces and the spaces of those real chuddy, like weird shit. The ads suddenly become laser targeted.
It is, yeah.
You know, it's not like that vague sort of like, hey, come take this class online, or like the stuff you see in your normal feed.
Yeah.
Which is still sort of like kind of embarrassing, like weird niche
becomes
product
ads
things.
like they're trying to take your way of life. Let's band together and fight against the commies.
Well, yeah. Well, instantly in any just general gaming threads, instantly all the ads become like Republican shit.
Yeah.
It's like they're actively attempting to target.
Yeah.
And
it must be working.
It's not working, judging by the financial reports of Twitter, but it does seem to be what he wants it to be.
It's sad.
Probably because it's all he can
sad.
get. I mean, you have to turn it into you have to reinstate the policies that were running Twitter before Elon bought it to get any of that back, if you even would get it back. And he doesn't want to do that because that would be admitting he was wrong.
Yeah, and that's never going to happen. So It's just interesting all the different angles around this game that don't have anything to do with the game. Because in the end, the game is just a competent action game with some boobs.
Well, and also like the changes were done long before any of the They weren't in the day one patch. The day one patch was to remove the accidental racist graffiti.
That's the other thing that they're angry about. The developers caved.
To what?
I don't know, Matt.
Like that's the thing.
Again, that thread just hurt my soul.
No one said anything about the outfit. The outfits were changed before the demo went up. So who was... That's the thing, is like these people whine about developers being oppressed and forced to change things by diversity. But these developers change things on their own. Yeah. That's the freedom to do it. That wasn't censorship. That was an editorial choice on the part of the creators. But they hate that because it's what they don't agree with. It's all inconsistent. It's all bullshit. And it's all a grift.
Yeah. I think the really sad part is that these people, I feel like they've given up. Because there's no way... Or maybe they just become irrational. But there's no way they can think in their minds like, what I'm doing now is going to change my life away from what I hate about my life. Like, nobody can sit there and do this stuff on Twitter and be like, this is going to get me a girlfriend.
Most of them don't think that.
Don't think what?
That any of that's going to change anything.
They don't think that.
No.
They're just doing it because they're angry and they're lashing out.
No, it's called being black-pilled.
What does that mean?
You know, red-pilled?
Yeah.
Red-pilled, like, I'm aware of how things suck for men or whatever. Right. Black-pilled means you've accepted that it's hopeless and nothing will ever change and you're doomed to be alone forever. Oh. So you might as well just be an angry asshole.
Okay. Well, I just want to let you know, if you're one of those people out there doing that, that is not going to change your life for the way you want it to be changed. It's not. You need to reject what you're doing. That's why you're struggling to find a significant other.
Yeah, and if you really think it's like, oh, I don't look like this, my chin isn't 2 inches longer today. There are women writing porn right now about the ghoul in Fallout.
Yeah.
Just be someone who's nice to be around.
Yeah,
be really a pleasant human being. I promise. That's the key.
Things will change. Yeah, so it's been interesting talking about this game throughout its cycle and everything, and the ebbs and different flows.
And they should thank their lucky... Well, I don't know if it actually translated into sales for them.
I don't think it did,
Probably
Matt.
not. I wouldn't think...
I had to go buy this game, and there were tons of copies of it.
Yeah.
And
I saw that too with the day one update. They're like, get the disc copy before you can't play the uncensored version anymore. And it's like, just go to Best Buy. Like,
I went to Best Buy. They had a stack of them. And I'll be honest with you, it has become really hard to find physical games anymore of anything.
You know what's really I can't find a physical copy of? Endless Ocean Luminous.
Yeah.
They pulled it off Amazon.
Oh,
they
really?
canceled everybody's pre-orders.
Some of the reviews today.
Is there no physical copy of that game?
I don't know. But IGN gave it a 4 today.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I don't expect it to be any.
It's like, whoa. But anyway.
Also, I expect the online features of that game to bring those scores down because that looks awful.
Yeah. The point I'm getting at, and look, I'm not talking to our audience, but I know a lot of people will watch this show on YouTube that aren't our patrons. And if some of you people are our patrons or our YouTube audience are living life like this, your life is not going to change doing what you're doing, man. It's not. You got to change. You got to become a good person to be around someone other people want to be around. That's when your life will change for the better in the way you want it to. So it's just been weird going through this, and like I'm glad that games like this don't come around very often anymore, because I don't know what it would do to our industry, honestly.
It does feel like a PS2 era throwback in a big way.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, Piano. Why hasn't Piano 1 been remastered? I'll give you 3 guesses.
Well, it's a crappy game.
The crappy 1 crappy game, 2 left ass cheek, 3 right ass cheek. It's just like, why in the world does that game exist other than that?
Yeah,
like, that's it.
Let's check in with you guys and see what you guys are saying about Stellar Blade. By now, I'm guessing a bunch of y'all have played it. Let's see. Retro Modern Gamer says Stellar Blade equals TNA DMC.
It doesn't really compare to Devil May Cry.
No,
like the combat's
way better in Devil May Cry.
Yeah, it just doesn't have the versatility.
And AJ asks, so is the game, when it comes down to it, fun to play? Yeah, I mean, I had fun playing it.
It's fine. It's better than a punch in the mouth. You know, it's like. I kept thinking of Darksiders. It was like sort of a pseudo action RPG with a just deep enough combat system and like people to it's sort of the same thing.
Dark Force 256. They should find an old Sears catalog like the rest of us normal people did, because to his point or her point, I actually don't know if it's a guy or a girl. Back when we were growing up, like you didn't have Stellar Blade and you didn't have the porn. You had to just find something goofy like a Sears catalog where they sold bras or whatever. That just shows you our age, though.
That's the problem, I guess, is that the woods porn doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Got to go find those magazines in a tree, kids, to write a passage.
Silkshake, nobody wants this to be nobody wants it to be a porn game. Mitchell Ness says, how was playing this with your partners walking in and out of the room occasionally? I mentioned this when I was playing the demo, that it was embarrassing, and my wife made comments about it. But I will say this, after she watched me play the demo, and then she watched me play the retail, she didn't say anything else again. She had said her piece about it, and let me know what she thought about it, and that's like adults do. That was it. That's how adults deal with things and conversate about things. And my wife mentioned it when she saw it the first time, was like, I think that's a little weird for you to be playing this as a middle-aged man. And then I played the retail, and she's like, I already told you how I feel about it. I'm not going to bring it up again. And my wife respects me, and that's how it went down. So that's how it went for me. Matt, you probably weren't playing it around anybody, were you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I was playing around my friend.
Yeah.
But, like,
another guy?
No.
Oh, a girl?
Yeah.
Okay.
She sees way more porn than I do, though.
Okay, I think we got all these questions already. We already answered them all. Nexus X Batty, what's your opinion on the whole Stellar Blade censorship circus? I think we talked about that already, too.
Yeah.
Erebus, does the game ever explain why a highly trained space marine turns up dressed like an 80s Motley Crue groupie?
No.
No. They never explain why all the girls are dressed in skin-tight suits or why they all have perfect bodies. Although, since they're cyborgs, I guess they could just make the perfect body.
I was hoping that it would eventually reveal that all the Airborns were actually men who transferred their brains into the android bodies of hot women, because why wouldn't it's just what they wanted to look like,
right.
and so in the end the big reveal was that you were actually playing as a guy, like a trans woman, basically the whole time. Like, that would be the best bait and switch in the history of video games.
Oh my god, people's brains would melt.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen.
No, that would be pretty great.
It would be. It would be funny. So anyway, there you go. That's Stellar Blade. I think the best way I can describe it in like a word or a phrase is it's a filler game. Like, it's not terrible, it's not great, but it's still fun to play and play through. It doesn't put up a lot of resistance. You're not going to get frustrated by it.
I mean, there is a harder difficulty setting, but normal is pretty easy.
Yeah, I played it on normal, and it didn't put up much of a resistance for me. It's not a Souls-like, I guess is what I'm getting at.
No.
So if you're someone who doesn't like those types of games, you'll be okay.
Don't be fooled by the rest at the rest stop and regenerate. Like, it's not a Souls game. It uses the Souls Estus Flask system and Bonfire system, but there's no penalty for dying.
Yeah. Hardly, yeah, you don't lose anything, and it doesn't really set you back all the time back to where you last saved either.
No, it's very
sometimes it has a checkpoint. Yeah. So there you go. That's Stellar Blade, a PlayStation 5 exclusive. Next up, we're going to talk about another pseudo open world game, although I would argue this one is more open world than Stellar Blade. And that's a game called Sandland. We talked about this game about a month ago on GameFace after I played a demo that was up on pretty much all the different platforms. And I said at the time that this demo was a huge mistake because there's no way that the actual game was going to be as bad as that demo was. And I was 1,000% right. Now, this is not a Game of the Year candidate by any stretch of the imagination. And in fact, I would probably classify this game in the same way I did Stellar Blade as like a filler game. But I've also, surprisingly, managed to have a lot of fun with Sandland. Matt, how much time have you managed to be able to play it?
I don't know, like a few hours. Like, I'm slightly past the part where you build the jump bot and like jump over the wall instead of going through the military checkpoint.
Well, this is an open world.
So I basically have all the equipment.
Okay. This game bumps up even less to an action RPG. This is a straight up action adventure in an open world. There are skill trees, but like you have 20 total skills, and then your two compatriots only have 10 apiece, the things that you can level up. So it's very, very simple in that way.
Some rudimentary tank upgrading. But that's about it.
Yep. And so
crafting. That's really
yeah. It's set in a world where water is the ultimate commodity. The game starts out, you are following this group of people that they are called demons. And as it turns out, actually the main character that you play as, Beelzebub, is the son of Satan. And you'll see in the B-roll here, you actually meet Satan in this game. Satan is literally his dad. But you roll with this crew of what's called demons, and everybody else out in the world thinks that you are horrible, you murder everybody, that nobody can fight you and defeat you, that you're this unstoppable force of evil, basically. And one of the cool things about this game that really endeared me to the game is that the lead character, Beelzebub, he knows he's supposed to be a demon and be this bad guy that everyone is in fear of and cowers from, but he's actually a good guy. One of the first scenes here you see, they rob the king of water and steal from these guys, but then they take the water and they give it to this blind kid, basically. And it's like, hey, here, like, and so a big part of the plot is Beelzebub struggling with the idea that he's Satan's child and he's supposed to be this evil person, but he's actually a good person. And that I never suspected that there would be this kind of deep level, like, characterization and character development, but there is. Like, and I'm guessing maybe that's what the manga focuses on more. I've never read it. Have you?
No.
My guess is that's probably what the manga focuses on more than like the action that you need in a video game. But I was pleasantly surprised by the undertones of the plot in this. And so what happens is you play as this group of demons, and eventually after this scene happens, you go back to your base and this dude shows up and he's like, hey, like, I'm trying to find this huge water spring that will basically save the lives of almost everybody in the whole world. Not just you, not just me, but pretty much everyone. And so he asks you if you will go on this journey with him to help him find this spring, and you go and talk to your dad, who is Satan, and Satan gives you his blessing to go on the journey with this guy, and you get in. As it turns out, the guy is not what he seems. He is a legendary general who fought in these crazy wars that happened before the world went to hell, and he is basically a good guy who's trying to save the world by finding this water. Well, the thing is he lost his wife earlier during this war. There was this strange explosion that happened that nobody could explain. And as time went on, people just kind of forgot about it and didn't think anything of it. Well, as it turns out, there was something very nefarious behind that explosion. And as the game wears on, you start to run into other people who lost loved ones in that explosion or were tangentially related to the explosion. And it starts to unravel this mystery of what really happened back when the world went to hell, and the king and what his part in it, what his role was in it. And a lot of his soldiers start to realize that the king isn't what you think he is. And that's kind of where the plot takes off from there. Eventually you find this village called, is it Silo or Sifo or something? I can't remember what it's called. Something like that.
Cylon, ends in an N.
Something like that. But you go to this like little town, and like these people, there's only like 4 people left in the town because the whole world is just barren because everyone's dying basically because nobody has water. And you get there and it's this little decrepit town where everyone's left, and you start rebuilding the town basically. And when you get there, the few people that are left in the town hate that you're there because they're afraid that the king will find out that you're there because you stole a tank from the king and they're out looking for you. Basically, there's a bounty on your head. And they don't want you in their village because they fear the king is going to find you there and they're going to raise the village and kill everybody in the village. So there's this dichotomy between that. You have this one partner, as you mentioned earlier, Matt, who builds stuff, and she builds you like your first tank, and then she builds you your jump bot.
She was not in the manga, by the way.
She was what?
Not in the manga.
She was not in the manga. So she's just for the game?
No, she was invented for the TV adaptation.
Oh.
Like the animated adaptation.
Oh, I didn't even know there was an anime around it. I thought it was just manga. Okay.
This is a very old comic.
It is 20 years old. Yeah. And so she becomes like your handyman who fixes your stuff when it's broken. She can boost up the abilities of all the vehicles that you have. She builds you your first tank.
You also notice she is the girl Akira Toriyama draws.
Right. She looks like all of them.
Every time.
Yeah. And eventually, like, you end up, like, she works in a garage, and in the back of the garage, you end up taking up residence, and it almost turns into, like, an Animal Crossing thing at this point, where you're, like, collecting furniture and, like, building your own little abode. Yeah, it scratches a lot of itches.
The mythology in this is very confusing. Like, they never really explain why Satan is just hanging out with demons in the desert, and everyone finds this to be kind of normal.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't even know if everyone else knows that Satan is there.
They all seem to know that the demons are demons. Like there's no question. I mean, I don't know if they know that Lucifer is hanging out
actually in a cave,
reading a book in a cave somewhere. But like everybody, no one seems shocked that demons exist.
Yeah.
There are misconceptions about them, and weirdly, Beelzebub insists that they don't kill people.
Yeah.
Which leads to the fact that you can blow people up with the tank cannon and then just sort of get up and run away.
Yeah, well, they run and disappear as they're running away.
Like, you don't kill anyone in this game. You kill animals, but you don't kill people.
Yeah.
People always just get knocked out by your massive firepower and machine gun bullets.
Yeah.
It's a choice.
Well, what sets this game apart to me is the vehicles. It's an open world game where you can go on foot and you have total melee controls and you can level up your melee abilities and eventually you get the ability to cast spells and you do crazy wrestling finishers. But really, the bulk of the game, you're playing in vehicles. Being on foot is a good way to get killed, although dying in this game is a challenge, I would argue. It's pretty hard to die. It's kind of like my first open world game. Like, you could totally buy this for your kids, and your kids are just going to plow through it. And
I feel like I really would have devoured this when I was like 12.
Yeah. Like, plow. It's not...
When I was about the same age as Beelzebub.
Yeah,
basically.
And the game is gated by the vehicles. So Matt was talking earlier about the jump bot. Like, when you first start, all you have is a tank. And the tank helps you blow up barricades, and that helps you get into new parts of the open world. Well, then eventually, you get a jump bot that you have the girl build, and then the jump bot can jump over broken bridges, which lets you access new parts of the open world. That's how the game unfurls. You get a new vehicle, suddenly there's these areas in the open world that vehicle helps you get past. Like, eventually, you get, like, this motorcycle that can run over top of quicksand. Like, that's how the game is laid out. It's not about you on foot. And I would argue being on foot in this game is a fool's errand because it takes forever to get from one place to another. Because
you only get out of the vehicle when you have to go through like a cave. There's little dungeon things.
Yeah, there's little caves you can go into that have resources hidden inside them.
And even then, you can summon the vehicles inside structures. And I mean, you're never without the vehicles. Basically, you have the vehicles basically are in Pokeballs.
Yep, they're in capsules. And so you have once you unlock all the vehicles, you have access to all of them in a radial menu at any time. And you just choose the one, you throw the ball out, the vehicle appears, you get in it, and you take off. And vehicles are different. So the tank can hold everybody inside it. But if you use some of the other vehicles like the jump bot, the other two people in your party get in a golf cart and follow you around behind the jump bot in the golf cart.
I think that's supposed to be an old style, like World War II era Japanese Jeep.
Right, yeah. It looks like a golf cart.
It does look like a golf cart. They do, if you look at that old Jeep, they do look like golf carts.
They do a little bit.
Things. I used to strap TNT all over them and ram into people in the Wake Island Battlefield 1942 demo. That was a classic move.
My biggest complaint with this game, other than it's too easy and it's kind of targeted towards kids, and I'm not a kid anymore, is that the open world is just too barren. And there's nothing going on in it. Like, that's one thing they did better in the demo. The demo was just a little patch of open world sand. And I feel like they flooded that area with stuff. When you're actually playing the final retail version of the game, there isn't that much stuff. There's just, when you're out in the open world, there's just not that much to do. You'll stumble upon, like, the same 4 or 5 different animals to kill over and over again. Every once in a while, you come across an enemy tank that's kind of cruising around out in the open world. But for the most part, it's just barren and empty, and there's not a lot to do there. And for a game that is built entirely on the open world, that's kind of a huge mistake, or a huge detriment to the game. So that's probably my biggest complaints, that it's too easy for people of our skill level.
Again, if it's like my first open world game, if you don't have anything to really compare it to, it's probably fine.
That's a good point, yeah. And it is. This game is squarely targeted towards younger players, although there are some jokes in here, Matt, where I was like, really?
Every once in a while. Yeah.
Matt, there was a joke in here where they insinuated that the girl was going to give them sexual favors in return for doing something for them, for the crew. And then they're like, whoa! And they're like, no, I didn't mean that. It's like, you shouldn't even make that joke in a game like this. Like, I'm sure
That's Toriyama, though.
An 8-year-old kid is sitting there like, well, what does that mean?
I mean, there's a lot of that in the original, like, Japanese Dragon Ball.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, Dragon Ball is pretty raunchy, too.
Yeah.
They just strip it out for the English dub.
Yep. There's a scene in this game where she is basically propositioned, like, hey, you do some sexual stuff for me, then I'll do that. And she's like, oh my God, I'm offended. And then the person's like, oh, I didn't mean it like that. But just even having the joke in there, there's like, in the time I've played it, I've seen 3 or 4 jokes like that already. So my guess is they're probably going to continue. So there are little touches of the game that might appeal to older players. And I think it's interesting enough that playing it with your kid might still be fun. Although I don't think they're going to need much of your help, honestly. It's that simple and that easy. But if you wanted to connect with your kid while playing a game, I think this is a pretty good option to do that. I've played this, I'm probably 18 hours into it, roughly. it doesn't really show any signs of ending anytime soon. It appears that the game is pretty big.
Yeah.
But I would also say it starts to get repetitive. You see it in the B-roll here that we're showing you. There's a good bit of gameplay variety. There's platforming. There's stealth. Have you got to the stealth part yet? Where you sneak through the camp as Santa?
Oh, that was very early.
Yeah, that's pretty early. So they do try to mix up the gameplay pretty well in this. But for the most part, I'd say 80% of the game, you're in one of the vehicles fighting other people in vehicles. Did you get to the second boss fight tank battle in the maze?
No, I don't think so.
That part was actually kind of challenging. So there are some spikes, some weird spikes here and there. But like the first boss fight's easy AF. Like the first one with the water tank. I'm assuming you fought that one.
Yeah, that one was.
That's easy. Simple. Yeah, but then later on, some of the boss fights aren't. And like you can see here in the B-roll right now, there's stealth kills in the game, though they're not dying.
You just scare them into consciousness, apparently.
So they try to mix it up a good bit, but for the most part, most of the game is set out in the open world. Just cruising around in your various vehicles, getting in fights, trying to find new places that you can go to. The missions are pretty straightforward. Like, I never found myself struggling to try to figure out what the game wanted me to do.
No, it's all very standard issue.
Some vehicles are better than others. Like, I found myself using the tank a lot more than the jump bot. The jump bot really is just good for jumping.
Yeah, the jump bot is a tool more than your standard vehicle.
And then eventually you get the motorcycle, and it does make traversal through the open world a lot faster. And that was a big revelation for me, because for a long time in this game, you either have the jump bot or the tank, and both of them are slow AF.
Yeah, they both go the same speed.
Yeah. And
even boosting, they only go about 50 miles an hour.
Yeah, and Beelzebub does not run as fast as Eve and Stellar Blade. Like, his run speed is not good enough to get around the open world. You really rely on the vehicles to do that in this game. So, this game is available for everything except for Switch. Or no, actually, it's available for everything but Switch and Xbox One. This is one of those games that dropped Xbox One, but it's available for both PlayStations, PC, and Xbox Series. And it's also $10 cheaper. This is not a $70 game. It's a $60 game, if that changes your calculus at all on whether you would buy something or not. And I think overall, Matt, maybe my biggest impression over this is that I feel like it sends Akira Toriyama off in an okay way. I was afraid this game was going to be a disaster, much like I thought Stellar Blade might be a disaster, like a 2 or a 3 out of 10 or something like that, especially after playing the demo. That demo did this game no favors, but it's way better than that. Like, I think he would be okay with this final product. As far as, like, this is the last game built on something that I
think he did work on this a bit.
He did. Like, there were some interviews that came out. He said that he's not a game player.
Yeah.
He said most of the games that he plays are on, like, his mobile phone or whatever. But he said
just like every other person in the Japanese gaming audience, really.
So he said most of the notes that he gave on this were things related to the IP, saying that doesn't make sense in the universe, that kind of stuff. Not like, hey, this tank controls like crap or it's too slow. Like, he didn't get into the minutia of the game like that. It was more of the overarching theme. Does it represent the IP well? And look, I'm not a big fan of Sandland. I've never really read the manga. I didn't even know there was an anime. But I feel like this is a pretty good representation of his manga from back in the day. I mean,
it's very recognizably him. I think they translate... I don't like his art very much, but I think they translate it very well into 3D. And this, it has a nice kind of hand-drawn, almost sketched feel to it.
Yep.
Especially close up, you can see like on the tanks and some of the clothing, like there's like kind of the cross hatching and shading on there that looks like his style. Like you can see under that soldier's like armpit and stuff. And I think that works very well. Like the shading on his collar, under the bottom of his hand there.
They almost use it for shadows. In some ways. Yeah.
It's a pretty cool look.
Yeah. I didn't find it like offensive or anything, and I'm like you. I'm not a huge fan of his art typically. I feel like it all looks the same.
It does, yeah.
Which is his style, but I'm not a big fan of it.
If you put Goku's hair on Beelzebub, I bet he'll be very recognizable.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like this game is like in some offshoot of the DBZ universe.
Yeah,
or
well,
something.
He does the thing that Tezuka used to do, where he has stock people who almost are like actors in his thing. So you'll see the Lucifer is also a guy from Dragon Ball.
Right.
Like it's almost the exact same.
He looks exactly the same. Yeah.
And like Tezuka used to use a lot of his younger characters look like Astro Boy.
Yep.
That Lampe guy was always like one of the bad guys. The guy who his candle would appear over his head sometimes to indicate who he was.
Yeah.
That was sort of a thing back in the old mangaka days. And Toriyama is definitely part of that sort of tradition.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just how Rumiko Takahashi does that a little bit too.
Do you recommend that people buy this, Matt?
I think if you need something to play to fill the like you said filler game, like you could do a lot worse than this. It's fun. It's like it's enjoyable. It's pleasant. It's a very pleasant game. It's very
it put me in a good mood playing this game.
Yeah.
And I was bouncing back and forth from Stellar Blade to this. They're quite a contrast.
I think you'll hit points where you'll be like, that's enough for a while. Because it is very repetitive.
I'm there. I will not finish this game. Like I'm like the 18-hour mark. It really got to the point where I felt like I was doing the same things over and over. And all that was left was the plot to keep me going. And the plot, while it's not bad, it's not good enough either to drive the entire experience. I guess I would say, if you have kids, this is a good game to play with your kids. But I'd probably wait until it went down. Your kids aren't going to be chomping at the bit to play this game. I would wait till it probably dropped around 40.
Yeah, there's no real rush.
Yeah. So when it gets down to $40, I'd probably start shopping for it. My guess is this holiday season, you'll probably find this game for around that price. Might be a good Christmas gift.
Or less, really.
Or less. It might be a good Christmas gift for your kids. And again, maybe for you too. You can play it and still enjoy it. I've enjoyed playing this game, although I did burn out on it pretty quick. Kids, their burnout quotient is far more generous than mine is. They have these fresh minds. They aren't jaded by a billion video games that they've already played. They're not going to get tired of it, but I did, and you probably will too after a while. So there you go. That's Sandland. Again, it's available for PC, both PlayStations, and Xbox Series. All right. And with that, it's time for... Oh. Or not. And with that, it's time for our Sneaker of the Week from New York Sneaker Society. What's up, everyone? Shane here, and one thing you may not realize about me is that I am a total sneakerhead. That's right. I've been collecting Nike sneakers since the early 90s. My favorites are Air Max 95 and Air Max 97. Now, one thing that's different about me from your typical sneakerhead is that I actually wear the sneakers. And because of that, they can get dirty. And that is where New York Sneaker Society comes in. Using their advanced shoe cleaning products, I turned an old pair of Nikes that looked like this into this. With their cleaning products, your sneaker life can go from a year to 5 or more. I know that. I have shoes that are like 30 years old that I still wear because I've cleaned them. You can also lower your carbon footprint, by keeping your kicks looking fresh. For my daily drivers, I also appreciate New York Sneaker Society's Refresh Spray to keep them smelling great and staying crisp. Head to nysneakersociety.co/sifted to clean your shoes like a pro at home and get 10% off your order. That's right, that's nysneakersociety.co/sifted for 10% off. That's right. With all our sponsors, we always ask that you use the specific URL that we give you guys because it helps them track the sponsorship and everything. But with New York Sneaker Society, it's really important because with that URL, nysneakersociety.co/sifted, you get 15% off. I know the ad says 10%. They have bumped it up to 15%. But again, you have to use that very specific URL, and that's nysneakersociety.co/sifted. And the coolest thing about this sponsorship is that we've managed to integrate it into our content. In every episode, we do a thing called our Sneaker of the Week, where we find a game that's kind of rising up the charts that a lot of people weren't aware of. And this week, the choice was easier than ever, because there is a game that is absolutely exploding right now, and it is called Manor Lords. This just got on my radar like 2 months ago, but I could see 2 months ago that this game was starting to build the hype, and now it's like exploded. It is in early access. It's already sold 1 million copies in early access. It is a cross between World Builder and RTS. And right now, it is on Game Pass for PC. Not on Game Pass for Xbox, only on Game Pass for PC. So if you're interested in this game...
It's made by one guy, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, really?
I believe it's a solo
That's
developer.
insane. I mean, this game is gigantic. Wow, that blows my mind. So anyway, if you're interested in this and it's catching your fancy, the commitment to play it is very low. Just get a year subscription of Game Pass for $16, and off you go. You're playing Manor Lords. It is the biggest game on PC right now, hands down, and it's only going to get bigger over the next couple weeks. I have a feeling at the end of the year you're going to have some people trying to prop this game up as like game of the year. Like that's the type of response it's getting right now. A lot of people are really, this is the stuff that is impressing them, how the battles work, the RTS battles. Because you can see every unit is modeled and is actually there. It's pretty crazy.
And it looks pretty organic. That's the thing about it. Like, it doesn't look like Total War where everything sort of is like lines crushing into each other.
Right.
Like that looks like individual people sort of moving in
dude,
chaos.
like into the chaos. Yeah. And I know you guys probably haven't heard about this. And if you use SIFTD, it wasn't even on our site until like a month ago. I finally created a game page and started curating content for the game because I started seeing the groundswell of this game building. And so this is our sneaker of the week for GameFace 385. It is Manor Lords, and again, it is only available on PC right now, although I'm sure with the response eventually there'll be console versions, although a little hard to manage those up with a controller. We'll see how they work that out.
We'll have to get more than one person making it.
That's true.
At that point.
Well, I have a feeling he's doing some hiring right now. So anyway, only available for PC right now, but eventually it'll be available for consoles. But if you really want to try it, the best thing you can do is just get Game Pass for a month. And if you like it, get it for another month. You still only spent $32. And you've played the game for 2 months.
Or if you like it a lot, buy it.
Or you could buy it.
It's early access, and support the developer.
Now, the reviews for this, the early access reviews, have said that it's not finished, and you're going to find
it's
bugs.
It's pretty rough.
Yeah, it's rough around the edges. So just keep that in mind.
But there's a lot of promise there.
Yeah, a lot of people are really hyped for it, and so are we. So that is our sneaker of the week for GameFace 385. And with that, it's time to move on for our final game in GameFace 385, and that is Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. I finally got that title right. I have not had a chance to play it, unfortunately, but Matt, you are a backer of the game, and you have. Tell us all about it.
So it is, it was marketed in the Kickstarter as Suikoden, kind of by the Suikoden people, spiritual successor, and that is exactly what it is. It is a traditional 2D JRPG with sprites and 3D environments, but 2D sprites. That are integrated very well into the environment.
I love the look of the game.
And it is basically, what if Suikoden 1 and 2 on PS1, but with modern tech? And that is pretty much exactly what it is, down to the animal people and the political storyline and the wars between giant nations that you're all caught up in and traveling around the different places and solving different problems in various locations, and there you go. And as always, you recruit over 100 people to join your town. So eventually, the demo,
that's the 100 heroes.
In the demo, it's actually over 100 in the end.
Oh, really?
Well, I think 120-ish.
Okay,
something like that. It's 108 in Suikoden because that's how many stars of destiny there are in that legend it's based on. But it's a little more than that. And early on, you go into an abandoned mine, and they talk about being the ruins of a castle, and you're like, well, this is going to be our home base. And eventually, sure enough, that is your home base, and you go around, and basically you go around to different places, and if you see a character who has a costume that was clearly designed beyond your normal villager, he's probably going to be someone you can hire. So you go in, and sometimes they'll just join you. Sometimes you have to do something for them. Sometimes you have to prove something to them. So you have to come back later and fight them when you're higher level, and then they'll join you. Or you need to have another character join you before they can talk to the other character. That was a bug where, thankfully, there are no missable characters in this game. Suikoden used to have characters where if you didn't talk to the right person at the right time, you'd miss that character forever.
Again. Yeah.
There's usually like a handful of characters that were like that. There are no missable characters in this game, except, I think they patched it by now, but there's a blonde girl in like a karate, like a gi, like a martial arts gear, and you need to have another character in your party you have to talk to him at your castle after you recruit him, and then put him in your party and go talk to her, and then she'll join you. If you talk to her before you got him, she would never join you.
No.
It bugged out her dialogue, and she would never move
but
past
it's a bug.
That's a bug.
That should be patched out.
It's supposed to have been patched out. I believe they fixed that by now, because that was a week or two ago.
Explain what you do with the 100 characters, because obviously you're not going to have 100 characters in your party at a time.
So a lot of them are actually, you can put them in your party.
But not at the same time.
Not at the same time. You have a party of 6, and then you have a support character who gives you a particular bonus. Some of those characters are support only. Some can also be main party members, but they give you something like gather more lumber from lumber nodes, or the ability to change your party members at any save point, or things like that. And then you have support, and then you have like background. There's like, I think 3 or 4 slots for those are for characters you have to have with you on the quest or the part of the story you're on, but if you don't want to put them in your main party, you can just put them in there, and they'll count as being in your group, but they won't fight in the battles.
Okay.
Which is nice, because sometimes they're required characters that you don't want to use in your party.
Yeah.
So, like, that was a nice touch to that. And there's your shark people. Love the shark people. They all look straight up the whole time.
They can't see anybody.
So they're all standing around having conversations with each other and looking straight up, and it's very funny.
It is funny.
There's a lot of whimsy in this game.
Yeah.
And and so a bunch of them are like that, but then I'd say about half of them are people that just work at your castle.
Mm-hmm.
So you require, like, recruit your aunt, and she runs, like, the farm. And you can recruit, like, these people that are, like, strategists, and they run, like, the strategy table, and, like, you have sending your party out, forming your party. You've got, like, storage people who, like, run the storage facilities where it stores all your resources you use to build up the town. You have a woman who, like, runs your whole building operations. You go to her, and there's a big skill tree kind of looking thing, and you could choose which buildings to build. So you have to have the right amount of resources and the amount of castle funds, basically, and the right ally you've recruited that will run that location. So to build, like, the fishing spot, you need to recruit the fishing guy.
Now, does the interface make it easy?
Yeah, it's simple.
Okay.
It's very simple.
So it's not tough to keep track of all the stuff that you need or anything?
No, it's all right there. And as a matter of fact, on the castle building trees, when you highlight the thing, it'll say which resources you need, and you can actually hit triangle to get the guide button up, and it'll tell you all the locations in the game that those resources are found.
Oh, great. Cool.
So you don't actually need to keep track of that at all. And it will show you the character, like a silhouette of the character you need for that thing. And they're pretty readily apparent.
Yeah.
But it'll give you an idea of someone you need to go get. And then if you already have them, it'll just show their picture. So you already know who you've got. You're ready to go. And then you can upgrade the castle multiple levels by having huge amounts of resources and a certain amount of population in the town. So everything you build, not only do you need recruited characters of a certain number, but your population has to be a certain size, and your population grows every time you build a new building. Mm-hmm. And so eventually you've got, like, a town. You've built your own town, and you've got you don't need to go buy stuff from any other locations, because you've got stuff in your town, and it's all there and ready for you, which is fun. That's one of the draws of Suikoden is doing that. So that's cool. And then you have these big battles. You'll see these kind of more strategy-oriented battles that play like real-time, sort of turn-based, but also real-time, where they kind of clash against each other, and someone will retreat or not retreat.
How prevalent are they? What percentage of the skirmishes are these?
Oh, these are pretty rare. These are like 10%. These are sort of the big. Every time you're in an area, like, usually, like, you kind of go to each area, and there's a big story, module about, like, getting that area to, like, join you. Mm-hmm. Usually there will be one of these battles that sort of culminates in that.
So, like, once per area, basically.
Yeah, I'm like 20 some hours in, and I've done like 3 of them.
Okay.
And then there's also, like, there's a guy you can recruit that, like, does those battles, an expert at those battles, and you have to beat him in one of those battles to get him to join you. And when he does join you, you can build a training field, and then you can go play, like, practice battles like that, and then there's rewards for doing that too.
Holy crap!
There's a fishing mini game. There is a card game, like a Yu-Gi-Oh style card game. There's chicken racing, and there's a Beyblade mini game, like a top battling,
where you fight little, like, robotic things.
No, like tops.
Oh,
like you run the tops down and they fight each other.
Oh, okay.
They bang into each other, and then you get, like, special ones that, like, for each, like, thing, and they get more powerful, and it's all done very dramatically. You're running around trying to, like, save all the kingdoms, but you're also, like, running around, like, playing children at, like, top battling, and, like, sometimes the other characters will be like, "What are we doing?
Yeah.
What's going on?" But it's there's tons of mini game stuff to do.
How about the start? A lot of the reviews I read, most of them agreed that the game starts really slow or starts awkwardly.
It starts pretty slow. You start with a pretty standard dungeon crawl, and as I said when I talked about the demo, that dungeon crawl is basically a meet cute for Noah and Sane, mm-hmm. the two main characters, the main boys. The whole thing is played a little weird, a little like a romance between the two of them, except they don't seem to neither of them seems to realize it. And he does join you eventually. Like, so one of my criticisms about this game would be that I think it's not bleak enough to be Suikoden.
Really?
Suikoden is kind of a tragedy.
No, it's
always been that. This one, at least so far, and I'm pretty far in, like, instead of the big twist in the middle being like, oh my god, this horrible thing happened, and it split our characters apart and they can never be the same again. The big twist in the middle of this is that the blonde kid, Sane, realizes he can't be part of this horrible, corrupt thing and joins you.
Okay.
So instead of like star-crossed lovers on opposite sides of the war, he jumps on your side, and you're like, oh, so we're all
friends?
good. We're all okay.
I feel like the game should just end right there.
Yeah, like Suikonen's more of a inexorable march towards this tragic ending.
Yeah.
Or at least bittersweet.
Yeah.
This one's way more optimistic and positive, which
okay.
I guess
I mean,
like,
that's
is
not necessarily
a downside, but it is the biggest difference from Suikoden to me is that this isn't, it's very anti-war, just like Suikoden is, but it doesn't get into the inevitabilities of war and how much it damages people in the way that Suikoden did.
Okay.
And then at that point, you can then switch between Noah's side and Sane's side and kind of see what's happening with the other side, the other part of your army, sort of thing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Although Sane is usually way more limited, like he's off with his own little group. And so that was actually the hardest part of the game was actually that because I had no options to level them up. There is some grinding you're going to have to do in this game sometimes because I will say...
I mean, it's a JRPG.
But like it's real.
Of course there is.
But it's a little too hard in places, I think. Not because of like, it's a complex system, but because enemies just hit like trucks.
No, really. They just do a lot of damage.
And if you go to a new area... you're probably going to have to grind a little bit to get your levels up 2 or 3 because otherwise you're going to be two-shotted by these guys by random whatevers, and that happens pretty regularly. I will say this: I was worried about that earlier because I played the full game on PlayStation 5, and I was worried about grinding because on the PC version there were almost no random battles. The random encounter rate was very, very low.
Weird.
On the demo. And playing this, it was much more normal. It turns out the random encounter rate on this game is tied to the frame rate. So if you have a high frame rate going on the PC version, you'll get very few random battles. How weird is that?
I've never heard of anything
that is
like that.
Bonkers.
What?
So
that's crazy.
So yeah. That's a thing to know if you're playing on PC, because like
what should you do? Just turn all the settings down?
Yeah, like limit your your frame rate. Basically.
That's hilarious. Wow. Okay.
So there's some info for you. So I found myself pretty often like running around in circles until I got random battled and grinding enough to get up to like a couple levels up. And the thing is, once you're up to the level that you can handle the area properly, you're getting like 2 or 3 XP per battle, so you can't grind before you get to the new area. You're going to go into this new area, and like the first time I walked into like one of the areas, the first group of random enemies I fought killed half my guys in one turn.
Oh my god!
Like some of these guys can do hundreds of damage.
Wow!
If 2 enemies happen to attack one of your, that's the thing is like so you got the 2 rows. There's a front row and a back row. That deals with like. Distance of attack, so you have short, medium, and long attacks. Short attacks can only be hit from the front row. Medium attacks can go front and back. Medium attack in the front can hit the back row of the enemies. Long attack from the back row can hit anybody.
Okay.
So long attacks tend to be weaker armored. They tend to be archers and mages and stuff. So you want to put them in the back row. The thing is, back row doesn't protect you at all. Like any flying enemies where can still just get back there and nail you, and I've continually had my healers get killed just because no one blocks anything for them. No one stops it. There's no real strategy to that.
This game sounds hard.
It is pretty hard.
I'm surprised by that.
And if you grind, I mean, you do when you level up, you go up a few numbers in each stat. The thing is, a couple numbers in the defense stat make worlds of difference. No, they make worlds of difference.
Oh, okay.
Like the difference between like 81 and 86 defense is like half the damage you were taking before.
Wow.
Like it's crazy.
Okay.
You got to keep your gear updated. You got to buy all the new gear every time you get somewhere and replace it as best you can. You got to grind. You got to make sure you're leveling up your guys. And to be fair, if you decide you want to use a character that's never been in your party before, like I was like level 30 or level 35, and I decided I want to start. They took away a couple characters for the story purposes, and I wanted to use this character that was only level 15 because I never used him before. He was back up. He's up to the levels we were at in like 4 fights.
Oh,
like it was real easy.
So that scales pretty well.
So it does scale extremely well.
Yeah,
they level up fast if you want to bring in new characters. You put them, put them in there and hope they don't get hit by anything because they'll got one shot at that point. But So that be ready for that. Like you're gonna, you can't just like sort of march through this game. You do have to. There are points where I had to really grind on it, and the boss battles can be a brutal.
Do they last forever?
They don't last forever because they'll kill you. They'll just fucking end you.
Wow.
So you got to be ready. You got to be ready to use the gimmicks. There's gimmicks in some of the boss battles where you can interact with things like an environmental thing that'll help you like either block their damage or hurt them faster. So you got to be ready to do that. Elemental damages are sometimes important. I will say that I haven't really used any mages in this too much. I've used back row people that can like hit hard, but like I find physical damage is way more useful in this game than anything else. If I've got and the other thing, characters you wouldn't think are your core. Like, early on, you run into this guy who's like he has a pink mohawk and like a pink trench coat, and he's like a Yakuza stereotype. He's just like, "Hey man, it's gonna be big. I'm gonna join you," and do all that stuff. And I'm like, okay. And he keeps his hands in his pockets all the time, just kicks everybody because at some point somebody told him he was dishonorable to hit someone with an unarmed person with your bare hands. So now he just kicks people, which was pretty funny.
I mean, if you think about it, you have to create over 100 characters, and each one needs to be unique. It's pretty cool that they managed to.
Well, the thing is, like, there's a fortune teller you get in your town, and the main purpose of her is to tell you where the characters you haven't gotten yet are. Like, you can pay money, and she'll tell you where a new character is.
Yeah.
But you can go and look at a roster of all your existing characters, and they have 3 backstory segments, and you get the first one for free, and you can pay her to like look into find the other. And some of them are actually really good, like really interesting, like things you wouldn't. I didn't expect that one of the first backstory of the wolf guy was like the first guy you get. He actually really loves cats, but cats are all afraid of him
because he's a wolf.
Because he's a wolf. But he hopes one day he'll be able to get cats to trust him, so he just buys cat toys secretly and has a whole stash of cat toys. So one day maybe he gets to live with a bunch of cats in peace.
That's
like,
the sweet and I remember.
That's that kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, but like the pink coat guy, I had him in just because I didn't have any other characters, right? He was one of the earliest guys you get, and so I'm like, I'm just going to use him to fill my party out. That dude is the strongest attacker in my entire army.
He's an ass kicker.
It is. If he gets a crit, because he can like do charge up, and if he does double charges and gets a crit, he can do 800 damage.
Damn. So how do you feel about the reviews for this? Like, it's been kind of bombed in reviews so far.
I haven't really been looking at the reviews.
Yeah, they're not been good. Like, people have been mostly disappointed in it. And
I think it's fine. I mean, is it as good as Suikoden 1 or 2? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Is it better than 4? Hell yes.
Okay.
Like, like Suikoden 4 is terrible.
Yeah.
It's the worst game in the series. I think it's fine. I enjoy it. I do think it's too hard. I wish there was a little more strategy. I wish the back row mattered. I wish some of these things had a little. I wish the team attacks were more involved. Like, there are hero combos where different characters can do a hero team up. And like you spend, because you have SP points, so every turn you get an SP back, and that's what you use to do your special moves in addition to magic points. But like, I have never run into a hero combo that actually does more damage than just having the two characters attack separately.
Okay.
So I never use the hero combos. They're almost never, unless they're elementally advantageous against a particular boss, I don't find them useful.
Okay.
Which is not true of Suikoden. Like, the hero combos were all very useful in those games.
It's weird that they would screw that up.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal was there.
Yeah, weird.
I do find that because I use items more often than almost any other JRPG in recent years, just because you have to maintain. I buy healing herbs more in this game than any other RPG I played in a decade.
Yeah.
So you got to keep on top of it, which is, I guess, maybe something that people might appreciate or that would turn them off. So know that that's there. Like, you can't just walk through this game. It is tough.
What about this, or what was the JRPG that just came out like a year ago that everyone was over the moon over? Something Stars or something?
Sea of Stars?
Sea of Stars, yeah. Which would you prefer people pick up?
That's a hard... I mean, this one is very specifically emulating something that people have nostalgia for because they played Suikoden.
Yeah.
Sea of Stars, I'd say, is more along the lines of like Phantasy Star.
Yep.
Well, maybe, or like, I guess Cosmic Star Heroine is more Phantasy Star. I'd say, I guess Sea of Stars is more like if you have nostalgia for Chrono Trigger. That I would say go Sea of Stars.
It's probably a little more accessible too, right?
I would
sea
say
of Stars?
so. Yeah. Certainly easier.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are more into the, if you remember PS1 JRPGs, go for Eiyuden Chronicles.
Okay. How much does it sell for? I know you got it free because you're a backer.
I can't remember. I want to say it's full price. I
think
it's
$60?
I think it's $60.
I think you may be right, actually.
I think it's $60, and I think it's like $80 if you buy the deluxe.
Wow.
Or maybe more.
Would you recommend people pick it up for that price?
I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you love Suikoden, this is as close as you're getting until Konami
maybe
off.
ever.
Maybe
they already
ever.
said they're making a sequel, but
we'll see if that actually.
Which would be interesting without the head honcho there to help.
I mean, at this point, they haven't even, especially because that one guy is dead now.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
It's probably the last of its kind in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Certainly until Konami gets off their ass and either makes a new one or finishes those stupid remasters, which have been coming for 2 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I do like it a lot. I just be ready that, like, the grand tragedy of Suikoden 2, which is probably the most memorable thing about that game and why it's the best game in the series and why it's hot take the best RPG on the PlayStation 1. That's not here. It's not a tragedy. Not unless there's a big swerve coming in the last third of the game, which is, I guess, possible.
It's possible, yeah.
But, like, it doesn't feel like... That would be a tonal shift.
You can't see it coming.
I would be shocked by that. Like, if you're really going to kill somebody off here, like Gremio style, I don't know how you would... The tone is just not there, like, in a way that Suikoden was.
All right. And this is available for everything.
Yeah,
this is available for both Xboxes, both PlayStation, Switch, PC.
You'd probably run this on your Apple Watch, frankly.
Really? You think so?
Yeah, it's not super demanding. I think it looks very good.
Yeah, I like the look of it a lot.
The music's very good. It's like a really good presentation. I understand why people kind of think it's less than the sum of its parts in some ways, especially if you weren't around for the heyday of this.
You don't have the nostalgia for it. Yeah.
There might be part of you that's sort of like, well, what's the big deal? Like, people, you build town. I mean, you build a town in Sandland. It's not that's not that unusual anymore.
It's not.
Gathering a whole army of people doesn't, it's cool. And
that's still a unique concept.
Well, collecting people, but also, once they get back to the town, it's not like you go back and then everybody has their own quest or something. It's sort of like, okay, now they just sit in the town and
do whatever they're assigned to do.
Yeah, it's like there's no extra gameplay being unlocked through that beyond like whatever the building they build. It's not like Dark Cloud 2 or something where like building the town is kind of a game in itself.
Yeah.
It's not like it's just a skill tree, really.
Okay. So there you go. That's Eiyuden Chronicle, 100 Heroes, available for everything. Matt, you say pick it up if you're looking for a challenge in your JRPGs, right?
Yeah, if you'd like something that doesn't hold your hand too much in that regard. I mean, there's places where like there's a point where like it's very hard to figure out where you're supposed to rest and get your health back, and I was running back through like really weird things, and like until fast travel finally shows up. That's what I would say is burn your way through the game. Don't worry about collecting everything, just burn through the game until you get fast travel.
Okay.
And that
then shift.
Yeah, because eventually when you get to, I can't remember the name of the town, it starts with an H. It's like a fishing, not a fishing town, but it's gray. It's very gray and silver. It's where the noble woman is staying to like deal with some like political stuff. And you'll wander around the town. You'll run into a girl who can teleport through portals, and keep running around until you keep finding her, and eventually she'll join you, and she lets you teleport everywhere all over the game. And oh my god, it changes everything. Like all of a sudden you don't have to run like this slow ass. The other thing to know is that early on you will pick up something I think called a dash badge or something. Put that on one of your characters. It makes you run 1.5 times faster.
That makes a world of difference in games like this. Yeah. All right, well, there you go. That's Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. And with that, it's time for... That's right, Sifters. It's time for Name That Game Tune, where I play you 5 audio samples from a video game, and you try to guess the name of the game before this guy. A couple things before we get going. You can only win once per calendar year, so if you've already won this year, do not play. If you do win, we'll be mad at you, and you won't get the prize. And the prize is a free PC game. And again, if you don't play PC games, or you don't know somebody who plays PC games, please don't play. We don't want to give away the prize to somebody who's not going to use it. We want to give it to someone who likes to play games, who will actually play the game. Now, again, you can give it to a friend if you want to. And then the final thing is that the chat is set to slow mode, meaning you can only send one chat message every 60 seconds. So don't blow your load, as they say, and just type a bunch of crap into chat hoping you're going to guess it right. You will not, and you will lose. Name That Game Tune is brought to you by SoundWizardry.com. If you have any audio work related to games or pretty much anything else, They are awesome, and you should hire them. Just recently, they really got screwed over. They had a big contract on a project, and just out of nowhere, their biggest contract was yanked out from underneath them. So if you're someone who needs audio work, if you're a publisher and you need a developer to create audio, they worked on 2 Game of the Year contenders from last year. They worked on Baldur's Gate 3, and they worked on Alan Wake 2, among a bunch of other awesome games that they also worked on. Those are the 2 Game of the Year contenders they worked on. They have an opening right now for work. Hit them up right away. Go to soundwizardry.com. Again, they can work on any audio project that you have, even if it's a film that you're working on, if you're a creative working on YouTube videos, they'll do it all. They have saved audio of GameFace that I have screwed up more than once. They have saved audio from Pactor Factor more than once. They can do it all. Go to soundwizardry.com. And with that, let me get your headphones turned up so you can hear the samples.
Speaking of sound, I forgot to note, I am 90% sure the sound effect when you pick things up in Stellar Blade is the sound effect when you get a blue orb in Knights.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's this little chime that is burned in my brain from Knights, and I'm 90% sure that's the same sound effect.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the last 2 times, you guys have guessed this on the very first sample. So my goal with this week was to make sure you didn't get it on the first one. I really hope you don't. You guys said, use really obscure games. I didn't go that obscure. I'm going to test something here. If you guys get it right away, I'll guarantee you will not get it next week, because I'm going to go off the deep end. So we'll see how this goes. Are you ready, Matt?
Mm-hmm.
Sifters, are you ready? Here comes the first audio sample in 3, 2, 1. See if we have any guesses from our chat. Make sure we're scrolled down.
Could be anything.
What'd you say?
Could be anything.
That's the idea. Metal Gear 5, no. Gears of War, no. A Medal of Honor Frontline, no. Killzone Shadowfall, no. They're going too fast, I can't even keep up. Gears of War 3, no. Battlefield, no. Battlefield 4, no. Battlefield Bad Company, no. Company of Heroes, no. Starfield, no. That's a good guess. Super Mario Brothers 3, no.
Fallout 4.
Not Fallout 4, nope. Metal Gear 4, no. Got any other guesses here before we go on to the second sample? Are we going to make it past the first sample for the first time in 3 episodes? Army of Two, Too Furious, no. Uncharted 2, no. Nier Automata, no. 50 Cent Blood on the Sand, no. Helldivers, no. Oh, that would be pretty clever for me to do Helldivers 2, wouldn't it? Or Helldivers. But no, I wasn't that clever. Half-Life Alyx, no. Ratchet and Clank, no. Lots of guesses on that first one. All right, I think that's it. I think we made it to the second sample. Yes! Okay, here we go. Here comes sample number 2 in 3, 2, 1. See if we get any guesses after that one. Battlefield 5, no. Fallout New Vegas, no. Oh, that would be clever for me to pull that one out, but it's not. Fallout 4, no. Titanfall 2, no. Armored Core 5, no. Good guess. Nope, not Titanfall. Ring of Red, no. A lot of people guessing Titanfall. RoboCop, no. 2 RoboCops right in a row, no. Battlefield 2042, no. Star Wars Battlefront, no. Horizon Forbidden West, no. These are all good guesses. Halo Infinite, no. Call of Duty Ghosts, no. Anthem. We have the winner. There it is. It's Anthem. I wonder how he got that after he sat there chilling and it just occurred to him, I guess. Justin Horman. Congratulations. That's it. We have a winner. Justin Horman is our winner. And we only made it to the second one. You guys are just too damn good. I guarantee you next week, it is going to be my goal to make sure that none of you guys get it at all. That is my goal for next week. I'm going to try to make it so that nobody gets it, even through 5 samples. And we'll see if I can do it. I really wonder if I can pull it off, no matter what I try, to play 5 samples and you guys not get it. Awesome job, Justin Horman. Also good to see you, one of our biggest supporters, win Name That Game too.
I could give you one that nobody would get.
Yeah?
I wouldn't be able to play.
Right, then you couldn't play. Yeah. All right.
You want to stump somebody, I'll give you one.
Okay. Emperor Dread, choose Body Harvest. No one's ever heard of it. Let's bring you guys up here. You guys are being pretty funny. This is for Vidya Games. Thank you for Twitch Prime. Not Cirque. Thank you for Twitch Prime. You guys talk about Zao. Okay, Dreylox. No, we did not talk about Tales of Kenzera. That is going to be in next week's episode. Unfortunately, we just didn't have enough time to get to it. Faradol says, I can give you a ton nobody would get. Okay, fair enough. You just can't share it with Matt.
We're just going to do games that never came to America.
If we got Anthem, there's no way you can do it, Shane, unless it's some obscure game. You're right. I mean, the fact you guys... And I didn't even play the rest of the samples, actually. I'll play them real quick here before we go. Here's number 3. Number 4. And here's
Jetpack.
Yeah, and here's number 5. There you go. Great job, Justin Horman, and congratulations for winning Name That Game. I don't know if you've ever won Name That Game. Like, even when we were doing the screenshots one, I don't think you... I'm not aware that you ever won it. At least I don't think so. All right. That's another awesome episode of GameFace. A lot of it is thanks to you guys for being awesome in our chat, asking great questions, fact-checking us, giving us information when we're asking for it. All that kind of stuff is pretty sweet. Silksnake says, I introduced Sifted to a load of Stellar Blades fans earlier during your talk on their Discord. Fingers crossed they like the site and sign up. I do not think that that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know how appealing that was going to be to them.
I think my conversation about the lonely incels may not go over too well.
He talked about it earlier around the time he said that Discord wasn't like that.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Well, then maybe they will. Maybe they realize that we speak intelligently about video games. We'll see. Before we go, this is the flagship show of Sifted Games, and this website is at sifted.net, and we are supported pretty much 100%. We get a couple dollars here and there from some other stuff, but mostly we're supported at patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD. We had, and I should also catch you guys up on this, so we had our website was hacked. It's been a couple months ago now, and we're actually still dealing with this, by the way. In fact, if you saw... our website went down a couple days ago for a few hours. That's because of the hack. We weren't hacked. It was us still working on fixing the website from the hack. And I'll say this. So after we announced the hack, we had a bunch of people either bump up their pledges or become new pledges. And Matt, in the last month, they've all gone away. We are basically right back where we started before the hack. Like, it's so frustrating. I can't even put it into words. So anyway, we could really use some new patrons. Like, if you're somebody who's been watching this show on YouTube for years now, or you've been listening to it for years now on a podcast service or whatever, it'd be really great if you could help contribute. We really need the help. I'm not just saying that. Like, you can see our Patreon where it's at. We need the help. So again, please go to patreon.com/sifted. For $4 a month, you get all our content at least 3 days early. Packed or Factor a week early. And again, if you don't have money, I do understand it. I've been broke in my life before and didn't have money for frivolous things. If you can't help us with money, there's other things you can do. You can like the show. You can comment on the show. You can hit the bell on YouTube to get alerted when the show goes live. You can review the show on any of the podcast services out there. There's tons of stuff you can do whether you have money or not, but we would really appreciate it if you could head over to our Patreon and give us a pledge. Even if you just want to give us $1 or $2 per month is just a thank you. That would be awesome. We appreciate all of it. And we are still digging out, by the way, from that hack. You may have noticed that our donation page still isn't back up. It's been like 2 months or almost more than 2 months now, and we're still working on it, trying to get it back up. I know a lot of you guys just like to donate. You may not want to get involved in Patreon or a subscription service. You just want to give us like money here and there. That's been off the table, so we haven't had the money coming in from that as usual. So I guess what I'm getting at here is, like, we could really use the help financially. Right now would be a great time if you could do it if you can. So, Matt, as always, thank you for opening up your home to do GameFace. Thanks to all you guys for showing up in our chat and making the show better, as you always do. And we'll be back next Tuesday, God willing. Hopefully neither one of us gets sick again. At least I hope not. But both of us just fought through some illness. We should be good to go. We'll be back next Tuesday right here at twitch.tv/SIFTD at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. So until then, have a great week full of awesome games. We'll see you next Tuesday. GameFace is up and out.